I wish to share with you a profound truth about divine compensation. A truth so transformative that it will forever change how you view every seeming loss in your life. For what appears as loss in the world of Caesar is but the setup for divine restoration multiplied. Let me tell you with absolute conviction, the universe, which is nothing more than your own wonderful human imagination externalized, is already in the process of restoring everything you thought was lost. Not merely in equal measure, but pressed down, shaken together, and running over. First, you must grasp this eternal principle. Nothing is ever truly lost in consciousness. What appears as loss in the world of manifestation is merely a temporary state. For all things exist eternally in the mind of God. And are you not told that you are made in His image? Here is the secret of divine restoration that few will ever comprehend. Every seeming loss is actually a divine setup for greater gain. When you truly understand this principle, you will begin to see every loss through the eyes of faith, knowing it is but the catalyst for multiplication. Let me share with you the exact law by which this operates. When something appears to be lost in your world, it is actually being transformed in the invisible realm of consciousness. Like a seed that must fall into the ground and die before it can multiply, your seeming losses are but seeds of multiplication. Now let me reveal to you the precise method by which the universe restores all things, a method so perfect, so divine, that it must repay you not merely what was lost, but with interest compounded by divine law. For every tear you have shed is counted, every disappointment noted, every loss recorded in the divine ledger. When you understand this principle of divine restoration, you will never again fear loss. For what appears as loss in the world of shadows is merely the universe clearing space for greater blessings. Just as a gardener must prune the branches to allow for more abundant growth, so too must certain things be removed from your life to make way for greater good. Here is the exact law. Everything that seems to be taken from you is actually being multiplied in the invisible realm. Your task is not to mourn the loss, but to maintain in consciousness the knowledge of divine restoration. For whatever you hold in consciousness must, by eternal law, externalize in your world. Now, here is something profound about divine compensation that few will ever grasp. The universe doesn't merely replace what was lost, it upgrades it. That relationship that ended, it was making space for a more perfect expression of love. That opportunity that vanished, it was making way for something far greater. Throughout your day, whenever you think of something you've lost, immediately shift your consciousness to this truth. The universe is now restoring this to me multiplied, not with effort or strain, but with the easy naturalness of knowing that divine law is already in operation. When someone walks out of your life, do not see it as loss. See it instead as the universe creating space for a more perfect expression of love. For I tell you with absolute certainty, every tear you have shed over lost love is being transformed into pearls of greater joy. Every moment of loneliness is being converted into deeper connection. Here is the exact principle by which this operates. When a relationship ends, it is not truly ending, it is being transformed. The love you gave, the trust you extended, the devotion you showed, none of it is lost. It is all recorded in the divine ledger, and it must by eternal law return to you multiplied. Now let me share with you something profound about relationship restoration that few will comprehend. The universe doesn't just send you another person, it sends you a more perfect expression of what you truly desire. That person who left, they were not your end, they were your training ground for greater love. Throughout your consciousness, maintain this knowing. Every person who has left my life has created space for someone who will love me more perfectly. For remember, in consciousness, all relationships exist in their perfect state, waiting to be claimed by your assumption. Let me reveal to you now how this same law operates in the realm of financial loss. Every dollar that has slipped through your fingers, every opportunity that has seemed to vanish, every financial setback you have experienced, all of it is being transformed in the invisible realm into greater abundance. Every opportunity you believe has passed you by, if it's too late, that echoes in your mind. The universe is already orchestrating divine compensation that will make you marvel at its perfect timing. When you understand this principle, you will see that time itself is nothing but a servant of consciousness. There is no such thing as too late in the realm of divine restoration. For what appears as lost time in the world of Caesar is being compressed and multiplied in the realm of divine compensation. Here is the exact law. Every moment you think you've lost is actually being recycled into greater opportunities. That business you didn't start 10 years ago, the universe was protecting you for a greater expression of that desire. That degree you didn't complete in your youth, divine timing was preparing you for a more perfect manifestation of that knowledge. Now, here is something profound about divine timing that most will never grasp. The universe doesn't operate on human schedules. What appears as delay in the world manifestation is actually perfect timing in the realm of divine order. Your seeming late start is actually your perfect beginning. Throughout your consciousness, maintain this knowing, divine timing is always perfect timing. For in the realm of consciousness, there is no past to regret, no future to fear. There is only the eternal now in which all things are possible. Let me share with you now how this same principle operates in the realm of personal growth. Every setback you've experienced, every failure that has haunted you, every mistake that has caused you shame, all of it is being transformed into wisdom, strength, and understanding. Let me reveal to you now how this divine law operates in the transformation of your perceived failures. For every defeat you've tasted, every dream that seemed to crumble, every venture that appeared to fail, the universe is already alchemizing these experiences into golden opportunities that will astound you with their perfection. When you truly understand this principle, you will see that what you call failure is merely success in rehearsal. For in the divine economy, nothing is wasted, not a single tear, not a moment of doubt, not an ounce of effort. All is being gathered, transformed, and multiplied by divine law. Here is the exact principle. Every failure you've experienced is actually a foundation stone for greater success. That business that failed, it was teaching you invaluable lessons that will ensure your future triumph. That project that collapsed, it was strengthening muscles you didn't even know you needed. Now here is something profound about divine compensation for failure that few will ever comprehend. The universe doesn't just restore your losses, it uses them as raw material to build something far greater than you originally imagined. Your failures are not endpoints, they are divine setups for comebacks that will leave you in awe. Throughout your consciousness, maintain this knowing. Every failure is being transformed into greater success. For in the realm of consciousness, there is no such thing as failure. There is only feedback, only learning, only growth. Let me share with you now how this same principle operates in the realm of your dreams and aspirations. Every dream that seemed to die, every goal that appeared out of reach, every aspiration that faded, all of it is being resurrected in more glorious form. When you grasp this principle, you will understand that no talent is ever truly wasted, no ability ever truly dormant. For in the divine economy, everything you have learned, every skill you have acquired, every natural gift you possess is being woven into the tapestry of your divine purpose. Here is the exact law. Every talent you possess, whether expressed or unexpressed, is accumulating divine interest. That artistic ability you never fully developed, it was maturing in the invisible realm. That leadership quality you thought was too late to employ, it was being refined for perfect timing. Now here is something profound about divine compensation for unused talents that most will never grasp. The universe doesn't just give you another chance to use your gifts. It creates scenarios where these talents will be expressed at their highest possible level. Your delayed gifts are not diminished. They are enhanced by the waiting. Throughout your consciousness, maintain this knowing. Every talent I possess is being called forth at the perfect time for its highest expression. For in consciousness, there is no such thing as a wasted gift. There is only perfect timing for perfect expression. Let me share with you now how this same principle operates in the realm of your spiritual unfoldment. Every insight you've gained, every truth you've glimpsed, every moment of awakening, all of it is being amplified and expanded in divine consciousness. When you comprehend this principle, you will see that emotional suffering is not merely pain to be endured, but rather the birthing process of deeper serenity. For in the divine economy, every tear becomes a pearl of wisdom. Every moment of darkness prepares you for brighter light. Here is the exact law. Every emotional wound you've carried is being transformed into emotional intelligence of the highest order. That heartbreak that seemed unbearable, it was expanding your capacity for joy. That anxiety that tormented you, it was teaching you the art of inner peace. Now, here is something profound about emotional compensation that few will ever grasp. The universe doesn't just heal your wounds, it transforms them into sources of strength that will benefit not only you but countless others. Your pain is not purposeless, it is the raw material for your emotional mastery. Throughout your consciousness, maintain this knowing. Every emotional challenge is being transformed into greater peace and understanding. For in consciousness, there is no such thing as wasted pain. There is only transformation, only growth, only expansion. Let me share with you now how this same principle operates in the realm of your relationships with others. Every misunderstanding, every betrayal, every broken connection, all of it is being rewoven into a tapestry of perfect relationships. When you understand this principle, you will see that physical challenges are not permanent sentences, but temporary states being transformed into greater strength. For in the divine economy, every physical limitation becomes the foundation for extraordinary resilience. Here is the exact law. Every physical challenge you face is actually being transformed into greater vitality. That illness that seemed to rob you of strength, it was building your immune system to levels you never imagined possible. That limitation that frustrated you, it was developing other abilities that lay dormant within. Now, here is something profound about physical compensation that most will never grasp. The universe doesn't just know health, it establishes a new baseline of vitality, higher than what you knew before. Your challenges are not your destiny, they are the cocoon from which greater health emerges. Throughout your consciousness, maintain this knowing. Every physical challenge is being transformed into greater strength and vitality. For in consciousness, there is no such thing as permanent limitation. There is only transformation, only renewal, only regeneration. Let me share with you now how this same principle operates in the realm of your mental faculties. Every moment of confusion, every period of mental fog, every intellectual challenge, all of it is being transformed into greater clarity and understanding. Let me now unveil how this divine law operates in the realm of your creative expression. For every idea that was dismissed, every artistic endeavor that remained incomplete, every creative impulse that was suppressed, the universe is already preparing an outlet of expression that will far exceed your original vision. When you grasp this principle, you will understand that creative energy is never truly lost. It merely accumulates, gathering force like a river behind a dam. For in the divine economy, every unexpressed idea, every unfinished project, every unrealized vision is being amplified in the invisible realm. Here is the exact law. Every creative impulse you've ever felt is alive and growing in consciousness. That book you never wrote, it was becoming richer in your spiritual storehouse. That music you never composed, it was being orchestrated to perfection in the silence. That art you never created, it was maturing into even more magnificent forms. Now here is something profound about creative compensation that few will ever comprehend. The universe doesn't just return your creative energy, it returns it multiplied and refined by divine wisdom. Your delayed expressions are not diminished, they are enhanced by the waiting, enriched by your experiences, deepened by your growth. Throughout your consciousness, maintain this knowing. Every creative impulse I've ever felt is now finding perfect expression. For in consciousness, there is no such thing as lost inspiration. There is only perfect timing for perfect expression. Let me share with you now how this same principle operates in the realm of your divine purpose. Every calling you've ignored, every mission you've postponed, every purpose you've questioned, all of it is being woven into a tapestry of perfect fulfillment. Every moment of divine connection that felt lost, the universe is already preparing a spiritual awakening that will transcend all your previous experiences. When you understand this principle, you will see that spiritual drought is not a punishment but a preparation. For in the divine economy, every moment of spiritual longing, every feeling of separation, every questioning of faith is being transformed into deeper wisdom and more profound connection. Here is the exact law. Every spiritual experience you've ever had, whether recognized or not, is accumulating in your consciousness. That meditation practice that seemed ineffective, it was building a foundation for profound enlightenment. Those prayers that appeared to go unheard, they were being answered in ways far beyond your current understanding. Now here is something profound about spiritual compensation that most will never grasp. The universe doesn't just restore your spiritual connection, it deepens it beyond anything you could have imagined. Your periods of spiritual dryness are not failures, they are the necessary preparation for greater spiritual heights. Throughout your consciousness, maintain this knowing. Every spiritual effort I've made is now bearing fruit multiplied. For in consciousness, there is no such thing as wasted devotion. There is only deepening, only expansion, only greater revelation. Let me share with you now how this same principle operates in the realm of your divine relationships. Every spiritual companion who has left your path, every teacher who seemed to disappear, every spiritual community you've lost, all of it is being transformed into more perfect spiritual connections. Now let me reveal to you how this divine law operates in the realm of your material abundance. For every financial loss you've suffered, every material possession that slipped away, every abundance that seemed to diminish, the universe is already orchestrating a restoration that will exceed your grandest expectations. When you truly grasp this principle, you will understand that material loss is merely the mercer's way of clearing space for greater abundance. For in the divine economy, every dollar lost, every possession released, every resource diminished, is being multiplied in the invisible realm. Here is the exact law. Every material loss you've experienced is actually an investment in future abundance. That money that disappeared, it was being transformed into greater wealth. That home you had to leave, it was making way for a more perfect dwelling. That business that failed, it was setting the stage for greater success. Now here is something profound about material compensation that few will ever comprehend. The universe doesn't just replace what was lost. It returns it in a form that better serves your highest good. Your losses are not permanent. They are divine setups for supernatural comeback stories. Throughout your consciousness, maintain this knowing. Every material loss is being transformed into greater abundance. For in consciousness, there is no such thing as loss. There is only transformation, only multiplication, only increase. Let me share with you now how this same principle operates in the realm of your divine opportunities. Every chance you missed, every door that closed, every opportunity that vanished, all of it is being reconstructed into greater possibilities. You will see that divine timing supersedes human timing. For in divine economy, there is no such thing as too late. There is only perfect timing, only divine orchestration, only supernatural acceleration. Here is the exact law. Every moment you think you've lost is being compressed and multiplied in divine consciousness. That opportunity you think passed you by, it was merely preparing you for something greater. That timing you thought you missed, it was protecting you for perfect manifestation. Now, here is something profound about divine timing that most will never grasp. The universe doesn't operate on your calendar. It operates on divine synchronicity. What appears as delay in human time is actually perfect alignment in divine time. Your missed timing is actually divine protection. Throughout your consciousness, maintain this knowing. Divine timing is always working in my favor. For in consciousness, there is no past to regret, no future to fear. There is only the eternal now, where all possibilities exist. Let me share with you now how this same principle operates in the realm of your divine connections. Every relationship that ended prematurely, every partnership that dissolved, every connection that seemed interrupted, all of it is being rewoven into more perfect unions. Now let me bring all these eternal principles to their ultimate culmination. For what I have shared with you tonight is not merely theory, it is the very science of divine compensation, the absolute law of spiritual restoration. Remember this fundamental truth. The universe, which is your own wonderful human imagination pushed out, must restore all things in divine order. Not by human calculation, but by divine multiplication. Not by mortal timing, but by immortal orchestration. Here is your final instruction. Take all that I have revealed to you tonight, and live in the absolute assurance that every loss, every setback, every disappointment is already being transformed into something far greater than you could have imagined. For this is not mere positive thinking. This is divine law. I tell you with complete authority, if you will maintain this consciousness of divine masterpiece, your entire world must reshape itself to reflect this truth. Every tear will be transformed into triumph, every loss into gain, every ending into a more glorious beginning. Go forth now in the absolute knowing that the universe is already repaying you for everything you thought was lost. Not in equal measure, but pressed down, shaken together, and running over. For this is the promise of divine compensation, and the promise is sure. Remember, you are not calling forth something that does not exist. You are simply awakening to what eternally is. Everything you have ever lost still exists in divine substance, multiplying, expanding, growing, waiting for your consciousness to align with its perfect restoration. Let this be your conviction as you leave here tonight. The universe owes you, and it always pays its debts with interest. Every loss has been recorded, every tear has been counted, every disappointment has been noted. And now by divine law, everything is being restored, multiplied. For this is the eternal promise, and it cannot fail. What appears as loss in the world of Caesar is but the setup for divine restoration beyond measure. The end has been reached, for you now possess the key to all restoration, your consciousness of divine compensation. Use it faithfully, use it consistently, and watch every loss transform into gain multiplied. When you pray, when you desire, do you beg and plead as though speaking to some distant deity who may or may not grant your wishes? Or do you know with unwavering certainty that what you have imagined in the theater of your mind is already accomplished? This is the secret I wish to impart to you tonight, to live as though God has already answered. Consider for a moment what it means to live in the end. Many approach manifestation backwards. They believe that when their desire is fulfilled in the outer world, then they will feel the joy, the relief, the satisfaction of having received it. But I tell you, this feeling precedes manifestation. The world is nothing more than the outpicturing of states of consciousness. If you would claim a thing as yours, you must first assume the feeling of already possessing it. There is a passage in Scripture that illuminates this principle with crystal clarity. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. Not that you will receive it at some distant point in the future, but that you have received it now. The secret is to live from the end, not for it. Let me share a simple truth that many find difficult to accept. The world you perceive is nothing more than your own consciousness pushed out. There is no one to change but self. There is nothing to change but your concept of self. If you would change the outer world, you must first change your inner assumptions. Tonight, I wish to guide you to that place within yourself where creation has already been completed. For all that you could ever desire already exists in the realm of infinite possibility. Your task is not to create it anew, but to simply appropriate what already is. Imagine, if you will, that you have a desire. Perhaps it is financial abundance, vibrant health, a loving relationship, or success in your chosen field. The natural tendency of man is to look at present circumstances and say, but how? How can this desire possibly be realized given my current reality? And in that moment, imagination is subordinated to the evidence of the senses. This is the cardinal error. Your senses show you only the effects of past beliefs and assumptions. They cannot show you what is possible. They can only report what has already been manifested. To concern yourself with the how is to place limitations upon the limitless. Instead, I urge you to ask yourself, how would I feel if my desire were already fulfilled? Then, in the quiet of your own mind, capture that feeling. For feeling is the secret. Every night before you enter into sleep, assume the consciousness of already being what you want to be, of already having what you want to have. Sleep, that mystic state, is the time when the subconscious mind is most impressionable. As you slumber, the seed you have planted will be watered and nourished, growing into manifestation by laws divine and perfect. There was a man who came to me in dire financial straits. His business was failing, debts were mounting, and fear had taken hold of his mind. I told him what I'm telling you, to live as though God had already answered his prayer for abundance. Each night, this man would feel the joy and relief of financial freedom. He would count imaginary money, feel crisp bills between his fingers, write imaginary checks with ease and gratitude. He would fall asleep in this state of wealth consciousness. Within a month, an opportunity presented itself that he could never have conceived of through conscious reasoning. A merger was proposed that not only saved his business but expanded it beyond his highest expectations. The outer circumstances rearranged themselves to match his inner assumption of wealth. Was this mere coincidence? I tell you, there is no such thing as coincidence. There is only the working of law. As a man assumes, so does he become. Consider the story of another who desired health after years of chronic illness. Instead of focusing on symptoms and limitations, she began to live from the state of perfect health. In her imagination, she moved with vitality, breathed deeply without pain, and gave thanks for her strong, healthy body. She persisted in this assumption despite all evidence to the contrary. Medical tests eventually confirmed what she had already known in consciousness. Her condition had dramatically improved. The doctors called it spontaneous remission. But there was nothing spontaneous about it. It was the natural result of a shift in consciousness. For consciousness is the only reality. You see, the outer world must and will conform to your inner assumptions. It has no choice in the matter, for that is the law by which creation operates. Now, let us address a question that inevitably arises. What of efforts that seem to fail? What of desires that remain unfulfilled despite applying these principles? I say to you that there is no failure in the proper use of imagination. What appears as failure is simply the revelation of a conflict within consciousness. Perhaps you affirm one thing while deeply believing another. Perhaps you mentally argue against your own good. Or perhaps, and this is often the case, you have not truly assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled with sufficient intensity and persistence. For imagination to be effective must be faithful. You cannot mentally vacillate between states of having and not having. You must be single-minded in your assumption. As James warned, he who wavers is like a wave of the sea, driven and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Living as though God has already answered means maintaining your assumption despite all evidence to the contrary. It means being faithful to the unseen reality of your desire fulfilled, while the senses still report the old story. This faithfulness is not always easy. The world will test your resolve. Friends and family may mock your new attitude when circumstances have not yet changed. Your own doubts may arise like specters in the night. This is the wilderness period, the interval between your assumption and its manifestation in the outer world. During this period, you must guard your mind as one would guard a precious treasure. For your mind is indeed the treasury from which all your experiences are drawn. Mental diets are as necessary as physical ones. Feed your mind with the assumption of your wish fulfilled, and starve all contrary thoughts by withdrawing attention from them. Let me tell you something of the nature of assumption. An assumption is not a verbal statement, though it may begin as one. A true assumption is a state of consciousness, a mood, a feeling that permeates your entire being. When you genuinely assume a state, you think from it, not of it. There is a world of difference between the two. To think of being wealthy is to implicitly acknowledge that you are not wealthy now. But to think from wealth is to view the world through the eyes of a wealthy person. How would you react to a friend's request if you were wealthy? How would you plan your day? What thoughts would cross your mind as you make purchases or review your finances? This is thinking from the state, and it is this type of thinking that has the power to transform your world. For as you assume a state, you are transferred into it. Your assumption, though false to your senses, if persisted in, will harden into fact. There is a technique I have often shared that aids in making this transfer of consciousness. I call it revision. At the end of each day, before you enter into sleep, review the events that were not in harmony with your ideal. In your imagination, rewrite these scenes as you would have wished them to be. If you had a disagreement with a loved one, revise it to reflect understanding and harmony. If you received disappointing news, revise it to reflect the news you would have wanted to hear. This is not mere wishful thinking or denial of reality. This is the conscious exercise of your divine power to create reality. For remember, there is no reality outside of consciousness. What you take to be an objective, immutable world is really a malleable, plastic substance waiting to be shaped by your assumptions. The Bible tells us that God called forth that which did not exist as though it did, and so it came to be. This is the pattern we are to follow. Now, let me address a common misconception. Some believe that this teaching encourages passivity, that one need only imagine and then wait for desires to manifest without taking action. This is a misunderstanding of the principle. Action will always be necessary in this world of effects, but the action that stems from a changed consciousness is qualitatively different from the action that is taken in an attempt to change consciousness. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you will be compelled from within to take whatever action is necessary for its manifestation. This action will feel natural, effortless, and inspired rather than forced or contrived. A student once asked me, "But Neville, shall I not make plans for the future?" I replied, "Make your plans in accordance with the state you have assumed. If you have assumed wealth, make the plans a wealthy person would make. If you have assumed health, make the plans a healthy person would make. Your actions must be in alignment with your assumption. This is walking by faith and not by sight. Faith is nothing more than consciousness of being that which you desire to be. Walking by faith means living from the state of consciousness of your wish fulfilled, while your senses may still tell you otherwise. I recall a letter from a woman who had attended one of my lectures. She had been separated from her husband for many years and desired reconciliation, though there had been no contact between them. After hearing these principles, she began to sleep each night in the assumption that her husband was beside her. She would feel his presence, speak to him in her imagination, and feel the joy of their reunion. Within 2 weeks, she received a telephone call from him. He was in town and wished to see her. Their meeting led to a complete reconciliation, and they never again separated. What brought this about? Not her actions in the outer world, for she had taken none. It was her shifting consciousness, her faithful assumption that brought about the change in circumstances. Now, some of you may be wondering about time frames. How long, you ask, will it take for my assumption to materialize in the outer world? This is a natural question, but one that betrays a misunderstanding of the process. Time is not a factor in the operation of this law. What is a factor is the intensity of your assumption and your faithfulness to it. Some desires manifest instantly, others take longer to unfold. The key is to continue living from the end, undeterred by the passage of time and the lack of physical evidence. Remember the story of Joseph in Scripture. He had a dream, a vision of his brothers bowing down to him. Years passed, and circumstances seemed to take him further and further from his vision's fulfillment. He was sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned. Yet in God's perfect timing, every detail of his dream was realized. This teaches us an important lesson. The vision has its own appointed hour. It ripens, it flowers. If it seems long, wait, for it is sure, and it will not be late. Your role is not to set the timetable, but to maintain the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. Now I'd like to speak about something that many spiritual teachings neglect: the importance of your self-concept in the manifestation process. For you cannot long maintain an assumption that is at odds with your concept of self. If deep within you believe yourself unworthy of love, you may find it difficult to sustain the assumption of being in a loving relationship. If you secretly believe that wealth is corrupting, or that wealthy people are somehow immoral, you will sabotage your efforts to manifest abundance. Therefore, the greatest assumption of all is that of being God's beloved child, heir to all the riches of heaven and earth. As you read in Scripture, all things are yours. This is not a statement of future possibility, but of present fact. All that the Father has is already yours. When you truly accept this, you will find it easier to live from the state of your wish fulfilled, whatever that wish may be. For you will know that you are not seeking to get something you lack, but simply to claim what is already yours. This brings us to another crucial aspect of living as though God has already answered: gratitude. Genuine gratitude is not merely being thankful for what you have received in the past or hope to receive in the future. True gratitude springs from the knowledge that what you desire is already yours in consciousness. Gratitude then becomes the feeling tone of your assumption. You give thanks not to make something happen, but because it has already happened in the one reality that truly matters, the reality of consciousness. There was a woman who desired a specific amount of money to pay off debts that had accumulated over years. Rather than focusing on the debts and the lack of money, she began to live each day in a state of gratitude for having received this sum. She would count the exact amount in her imagination before sleep. She would feel the relief, the freedom, the joy of debt-free living. She maintained this attitude of gratitude for several weeks, telling no one of what she was doing. Then, through a series of events that no one could have predicted, involving an overlooked insurance policy and a small inheritance, she received almost to the penny the exact sum she had been imagining. Was this a miracle? By the world's standards, perhaps. But by the standards of the law we are discussing, it was simply the natural outcome of her faithfully assumed state. For that which is assumed, if persisted in, must objectify itself in the outer world. I want to address something that is often misunderstood in spiritual teachings, the nature of God. For if you are to live as though God has already answered, you must understand who this God is that answers prayer. God is not some being separate from yourself, waiting in the heavens to grant or deny your petitions based on some arbitrary standard of worthiness. God is your own wonderful human imagination. This is the creative power that shapes your world. This is the I am at the center of your being. When Scripture says, I am that I am, it is revealing the nature of God and the nature of man, for they are one. Whatever you attach to the phrase one am in your consciousness becomes your reality. I am poor. I am wealthy. I am loved. I am neglected. I am healthy. I am sick. These are all creative statements. Therefore, when you imagine your desires fulfilled and feel the reality of it, you are experiencing God answering your prayer in the only place prayer is ever answered, in consciousness. Living as though God has already answered means claiming your rightful place as a creative being made in God's image. It means recognizing that the power to shape your life lies not in some external force, but in your own consciousness. Let me share with you an experience that illustrates this principle in action. Years ago, a young man attended my lectures who had been seeking employment without success. He had the qualifications, he had the experience, but doors seemed to close before he could even present himself. After learning these principles, he began to sleep each night in the assumption that he was employed in the position he desired. He would feel himself sitting at the desk, interacting with colleagues, receiving his paycheck. Within 10 days, he was called for an interview at a company he had not even known. A mutual acquaintance had recommended him. The position offered was even better than the one he had been imagining, with greater responsibility and higher compensation. What brought this about? His change of consciousness. You see, the world is not responding to your wishes, your hopes, or your efforts. It is responding with mathematical precision to your state of consciousness. Change the cause, consciousness, and you change the effect, circumstances. Now let us delve deeper into the practical application of this principle. How exactly does one live as though God has already answered? It begins with a decision to mentally dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled, despite all appearances to the contrary. This decision must then be followed by mental and emotional discipline. Throughout your day, whenever your thoughts drift back to the problem or the lack, gently bring them back to the solution, to the state of fulfillment. This is the practice of mindfulness applied to creative imagination. There are specific times when this practice is most effective. The moments before sleep and upon first awakening are particularly potent, for it is during these twilight states that the conscious and subconscious minds are most permeable to one another. As you lay your head upon the pillow, mentally construct a scene that would imply your desire has been fulfilled. Make it as vivid and as real as possible. Involve all your senses. What would you see? What would you hear? What would you touch? How would you feel emotionally? Then allow yourself to fall asleep within this imaginative act. Similarly, in those drowsy moments upon awakening, Before the concerns of the day flood in, revisit your imaginal scene. Feel again the joy, the gratitude, the fulfillment. This plants the seed deeply in the fertile soil of the subconscious mind. Throughout your waking hours, there will be moments when doubt arises. This is natural. The senses are persistent in their reports, and old habits of thought do not yield easily. When this occurs, do not fight or resist these thoughts. Instead, gently return to your assumption. Remember, energy flows where attention goes. Withdraw attention from the unwanted state and place it firmly in the state of your wish fulfilled. A technique that many find helpful during these moments is the simple question, how would I be feeling right now if my desire were already fulfilled? Then, without waiting for the logical mind to intervene, immediately adopt that feeling state. Feeling is the secret, the bridge between imagination and manifestation. Now, there may be those among you who are thinking, but this all seems like self-deception. Isn't it dishonest to pretend that I have something when clearly I don't? This question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of reality. What you perceive as solid, immutable reality is actually the shadow cast by previous states of consciousness. Your physical environment, your circumstances, your relationships, all are projections of states you have occupied in consciousness. They have no independent reality apart from the meaning and power you give them. Therefore, when you assume a new state in consciousness, you are not lying to yourself or practicing self-deception. You are exercising your divine prerogative to choose the state from which you will view the world. This is not pretense, it is the highest form of truth, acknowledging the creative power of your consciousness. The world may call this madness, but remember what Scripture tells us. The wisdom of God is foolishness to men. Those who understand this principle and apply it consistently find that the world has no choice but to reshape itself around their assumptions. I am often asked about desire, its nature, and its role in this process. Some spiritual teachings suggest that desire itself is the root of suffering and should be transcended. Others teach that desire is God's way of guiding us toward our highest good. My understanding is this: desire in its purest form is God's voice within you, calling you toward the expansion and fuller expression of life. However, desire becomes problematic when it is rooted in a sense of lack or incompleteness, when you believe that you need this thing outside yourself to be whole or happy. The secret is to desire from a position of fullness, not emptiness. To want what you want because it would be a joyful expression of life, not because you believe it would complete you. This subtle distinction makes all the difference in how your desire is manifested. When you live as though God has already answered, you are desiring from fullness. You are claiming that in consciousness your desire is already fulfilled. You are complete, whole, lacking nothing. From this state, manifestation flows naturally and effortlessly. Let me address another question that frequently arises. What if my desire involves other people? Surely I cannot control another's free will. This concern stems from a misunderstanding of both the nature of consciousness and the nature of free will. Everyone in your world is an aspect of your consciousness pushed out. This does not mean they lack free will. It means that real them that appears in your reality conforms to your assumptions about them. If you assume that someone is uncooperative, that version of them will appear in your experience. If you assume they are helpful and kind, that is the version you will encounter. This is not manipulation, it is the law of consciousness in operation. Therefore, when your desire involves others, you need not worry about infringing upon their free will. Simply assume that they are already the way you desire them to be. In your imagination, hear them saying what you wish to hear. See them doing what you wish them to do. Feel the satisfaction of this harmonious relationship. Then release them completely. Do not specify how or when they must conform to this assumption. Give infinite intelligence the freedom to bring about your desire in ways that serve the highest good of all involved. I recall a woman who had a strained relationship with her daughter-in-law. Despite her best efforts to be friendly, there was always tension between them. After learning these principles, she began to imagine conversations with her daughter-in-law that were warm and loving. She would fall asleep feeling the joy of this harmonious relationship. Within weeks, without any direct action on her part, her daughter-in-law's attitude began to soften. Invitations were extended, Pleasant phone calls were received and a genuine friendship began to blossom. The woman had changed no one but herself, her concept of her daughter-in-law, and her outer world reshaped itself accordingly. This brings us to another important aspect of living as though God has already answered: detachment from outcomes. While this may seem contradictory to what I have been sharing, it is actually complementary. To live in the end means to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. But attached to this must be a willingness to let the infinite wisdom of God determine the how and the when of its manifestation. Your role is to remain faithful to the state you have assumed. God's role, the role of your own marvelous creative consciousness, is to bring about the manifestation in its own perfect way and timing. This detachment is not indifference. Rather, it is supreme confidence in the perfect working of the law. It is the peaceful certainty that what has been assumed in consciousness must objectify itself in reality. It is the difference between white-knuckle determination and graceful allowing. Those who master this art of detached assumption find that their manifestations often exceed their specific mental pictures. They receive not just what they imagine, but something even more perfectly suited to their desires. For the infinite intelligence of God knows what you truly desire better than your conscious mind does. Now I want to address what might be called the shadow side of this practice. What happens when we unconsciously assume negative states? For the law works with equal precision whether our assumptions are positive or negative. Many live their entire lives assuming lack, limitation, illness, or conflict, and then wonder why these conditions persist despite their best efforts to change them. They do not realize that their assumptions, often hidden beneath the surface of conscious awareness, are creating the very conditions they seek to escape. This is why self-observation is so crucial. Begin to notice the assumptions that underlie your thoughts, words, and emotions. What are you accepting as true about yourself and your world? What states are you unknowingly occupying? When you identify a negative assumption, do not fight or resist it. Remember, what you resist persists. Instead, simply withdraw your attention from it and place it lovingly on the assumption you wish to embody. For consciousness cannot serve two masters. It will follow where attention leads. There is a phenomenon I have observed in the application of this principle that I call the crisis of faith. Often just before a desire manifests, circumstances seem to worsen. It is as though the old state of consciousness is making a final stand before surrendering to the new. During this crisis, many abandon their assumption and revert to the old state, not realizing how close they were to success. This is the time for renewed faithfulness to your assumption. This is when living as though God has already answered is most powerfully tested and most powerfully demonstrated. Those who remain steadfast during this crisis, who continue to live from the end despite contrary evidence, are those who most quickly and dramatically manifest their desires. They have passed the test of faith, proving they are ready to embody the state they have assumed. Let me share with you a concept that may help during these times of testing: the Sabbath. In the biblical tradition, the Sabbath represents rest, the cessation of labor. In the context of conscious creation, it signifies that point where you rest from your mental labors, knowing the work is complete in consciousness. To enter this Sabbath state is to feel such certainty about your assumption that you no longer feel the need to repeat the imaginative act. There is a deep knowing that what you have assumed is already done. This is the perfect state of detached assumption I spoke of earlier. As you practice living as though God has already answered, you will begin to experience synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that confirm you are on the right track. A book falls open to just the page you needed to read. A chance conversation provides the very information you were seeking. A seemingly random meeting leads to the perfect opportunity. These synchronicities are not accidents. They are the subtle workings of the law as the outer world begins to conform to your inner assumptions. They are confirmations that the bridge of incidents leading to your desire's fulfillment is being built. Welcome these signs with gratitude, but do not become dependent on them. Your faith must rest not on external evidence, but on the conviction that what is assumed in consciousness must manifest in reality. This is the true meaning of faith, the evidence of things not seen. As we draw toward the conclusion of our discussion, I want to emphasize one final point. This principle of living as though God has already answered is not merely a technique for manifesting specific desires. It is a way of life, a state of being that aligns you with your divine nature. When you truly understand that your consciousness is the one and only reality, that the world you experience is simply consciousness objectified, you will approach all of life differently. You will move through your days with a quiet confidence and inner peace that comes from knowing you are the author of your experience. You will no longer be a victim of circumstances, but a conscious creator of your reality. You will no longer plead with an external God, but will commune with the God within. Your own wonderful human imagination. You will no longer live in anxious anticipation of what might be, but will rest in the certainty of what already is in consciousness. This is the freedom that awaits those who master the art of living as though God has already answered. This is the promise of the principle we have explored tonight. In the days and weeks to come, I encourage you to test this principle for yourself. Start with something small if you wish, something that does not arouse intense doubt or resistance. Assume the feeling of having already received it. Live from that assumption. Watch as the outer world reshapes itself to match your inner state. As you prove the Lord in these small ways, your confidence will grow. You will be ready to apply it to progressively larger desires. Eventually, you will reach a point where no desire seems impossible, for you will have experienced firsthand the truth that all things are possible to God, the God of your own consciousness. Remember always that the secret of manifestation is not in doing, but in being. Not in future action, but in present assumption. Not in working toward your desire, but in living from its fulfillment. This is the pearl of great price, the treasure hidden in the field of your own consciousness. To possess it, you must sell all your former beliefs about the nature of reality, all your attachment to appearances, all your identification with lack and limitation. But oh, what a magnificent exchange! For in return, you receive the kingdom of heaven, the realization that all you could ever desire already exists within you as potential, waiting only for your assumption to call it forth into expression. So tonight, as you lay your head upon your pillow, do so with this knowledge: God has already answered. Your desire is already fulfilled in the only reality that matters, the reality of consciousness. From this state of fulfilled desire, fall asleep. Let this be your prayer, your affirmation, your unwavering assumption. And as the days unfold, watch in wonder as your outer world begins to mirror what you have inwardly assumed. For this is the law and the prophets, the secret of the ages now revealed to those with eyes to see and ears to hear. God has already answered. Live from that glorious assumption and watch as miracles unfold in your life. I am not referring to some distant deity sitting on a cloud, passing judgment on his creation. No, the God of whom I speak is your own wonderful human imagination. This is the God that created all things and continues to create your world even now. The eternal body of man is the imagination that is God himself, as Blake so brilliantly expressed. This divine presence is not separate from you. It is the very core of your being. It is the I am consciousness that declares itself whenever you say, I am. When you state, I am wealthy, I am healthy, I am loved, you are activating the creative power of God within you. This power never sleeps, never fails, and never abandons the work it has begun in you. Perhaps you look at your current circumstances and see evidence that contradicts the fulfillment of your desires. You may see limitation where you crave abundance, illness where you long for health, or solitude where you yearn for companionship. And you wonder, has God abandoned me? Is the process broken? I tell you with absolute certainty, God is not done with you. Your physical senses present a world of effects, but the true causative power lies in your imagination. What you now experience as your reality was once only imagined. And what you now imagine with feeling and conviction must, by law, externalize itself in your world. The divine process. The process by which imagination creates reality follows an inviolable pattern. First comes the seed, your assumption. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you plant this seed in the fertile soil of consciousness. Then comes a period of gestation. During this interval, the conditions necessary for your assumption's fulfillment are being arranged in ways your conscious mind cannot perceive. Many abandon their desires during this critical gestation period, not understanding the perfect timing of divine law. They mistake the silence for absence, the darkness for defeat. But I tell you, this is the very moment to intensify your faith, to deepen your conviction that God's work in you continues unabated, unseen. The seed must decompose before the new growth appears. There is always a period of darkness, of apparent nothingness, before the manifestation of the new state. This is nature's way, and nature is but God's method of operation. Consider the miracle of a simple seed. Place it in the ground, and to all appearances it dies. There is a period where nothing seems to happen. Is the process incomplete? Has nature abandoned its purpose? No, beneath the surface, invisible to human eyes, a magnificent transformation is occurring. The seed casing breaks down, releasing the life force within. Roots extend downward. A shoot pushes upward, and in perfect timing, not a moment too soon or too late, new life emerges into the light. So it is with the seeds of your desires. Once planted in consciousness through the feeling of the wish fulfilled, they enter a period of invisible development. This is not a time of inactivity, but of the most profound activity beyond the detection of your senses. Do not despair during this period of seeming nothingness. Do not interpret the silence as abandonment. God is not done with you. The divine process continues, arranging the 1,000 details necessary for your assumption to flower into fact. Persistence in the face of contradiction. The world of Caesar, the world of physical evidence, will always present facts that contradict your new assumption. This is the greatest test of your faith. Can you persist in your assumption despite the testimony of your senses? When the man with the withered hand was commanded to stretch it forth, all physical evidence argued against the possibility. His experience, his memory, medical opinion, all would have counseled against attempting the impossible. Yet in that critical moment, he did not consult his past, but activated his imagination to feel what it would be like to have a perfectly functioning hand. He persisted in this new assumption despite all contradictory evidence, and his hand was restored. You too must develop this capacity to persist in your new assumption regardless of contradictory appearances. Your physical senses can only show you what has been manifested from past imaginings. They cannot reveal what is being shaped now through your present act of imagination. Remember the words attributed to Jesus, "Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." Righteous judgment is to judge from the standpoint of your wish fulfilled, to see what is not yet visible to mortal eyes. When you find yourself beset by doubts, when the voice of reason lists all the obstacles to your desires' fulfillment, when well-meaning friends counsel you to be realistic, this is the moment to reaffirm, God is not done with me. The process is unfolding perfectly. That which I've assumed in my imagination is already mine in the reality of consciousness, and must shortly become mine in the world of effects. The law of identical harvest. A fundamental law of creation is that you always reap what you sow. Your harvest will be identical in kind to your seed. If you plant corn, you will not harvest wheat. If you plant assumptions of lack, you cannot reap abundance. Many pray fervently for one state, while constantly imagining themselves in its opposite. They pray for health while fixating on symptoms. They desire wealth while mentally rehearsing their financial worries. They long for love while imaginatively dwelling on their loneliness. Then they wonder why God seems to have abandoned their cause. I tell you, God has not abandoned you. The Lord is functioning perfectly. You are experiencing precisely what you have planted in consciousness through your dominant assumptions. If you desire a different harvest, you must plant different seeds. You must revise your concept of self. Instead of accepting the suggestion of limitation, consciously choose the assumption of fulfillment. Feel yourself to be the person you wish to be. Experience imaginatively the state you long to occupy. Do this with the conviction that God's process is at work within you. Your conscious assumption activates the divine creative power, which then works day and night, independently of your conscious awareness, to bring about the conditions necessary for your assumption's fulfillment. The present moment is the point of creation. Many believe that fulfillment lies in some distant future, that they must wait for God to complete His work. But I tell you, the only point of creation is the eternal now. God's work in you is completed the moment you fully accept your assumption as fact. In imagination, step into the state of your wish fulfilled. Experience it with all the vividness you can muster. Feel the naturalness of being what you desire to be. Then know with absolute certainty that in the reality of consciousness, the only true reality or desire is already fulfilled. The time it takes for this inner fulfillment to become apparent to your senses is determined by the intensity of your feeling and the naturalness of your assumption. Some desires manifest instantly, while others require a period of unfoldment. But make no mistake, the creative act is completed in the moment of assumption. God is not working toward the fulfillment of your desire. In the moment you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, that desire was granted. What follows is not creation, but the emergence into visibility of that which is already complete, the Sabbath rest. After God completed His work of creation, He rested. This is a profound mystical truth that holds the key to successful manifestation. When you have planted the seed of your desire through conscious assumption, you must enter the Sabbath, the state of mental rest. Many undermine their creative work by continuing to labor anxiously after the seed is planted. They dig up the seed repeatedly to check if it's growing. They water it with tears of doubt and fear. They hover over it with the anxious concern of a parent whose lack of trust impedes the natural development of their child. To trust the process is to enter the Sabbath rest. Having assumed the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you release all anxiety about how and when it will appear in your world. You know with unshakable confidence that what you have planted must, by divine law, come to harvest. This rest is not inactivity, but the highest form of activity, the activity of faith. It is a mental stillness that reflects absolute confidence in the perfect operation of divine law. It is the peace that comes from knowing that God is not done with you, that the process continues perfectly without your anxious supervision. The principle of revision. If you have planted seeds contrary to your desires, if you have accepted limiting assumptions that now manifest as unwanted conditions, do not despair. The divine power of revision is always available to you. Through the art of revision, you can literally re-roar past. As you drop into sleep tonight, replay the events of your day not as they occurred, but as you wish they had occurred. Feel the joy, the satisfaction, the fulfillment that would be yours had things gone ideally. This is not mere fantasy or escapism. This is the activation of the divine process of creation. Your imaginal act, impressed upon the malleable substance of consciousness, will work backward and forward to bring about conditions in harmony with your revised version. God is not done with your past any more than He is done with your future. All time exists simultaneously in the eternal now of consciousness. What you have experienced as past remains alive and subject to revision through the power of your imagination. The bridge of incidents between your present state and the fulfillment of your desire stretches what I call the bridge of incidents, a series of seemingly unrelated ends that lead inevitably to your desired end. You need not concern yourself with constructing this bridge. That is the work of the divine process. Your task is simply to occupy the end, to dwell mentally in the state of your wish fulfilled, and to trust the perfect operation of the law to bring about all intermediate steps. These steps may not follow the path you would consciously choose. They may include apparent setbacks or detours. The human intellect, with its limited perspective, cannot map the shortest route between desire and fulfillment. But divine intelligence, operating through your assumption, knows the perfect way. Often, what appears to be a devastating disappointment proves to be a necessary link in the chain of fulfillment. The job you didn't get, the relationship that ended, the investment that failed, all may be essential components of the bridge leading to something far greater than you had imagined. This is why trust in the process is so essential. When you truly understand that God is not done with you, you can meet every circumstance with the conviction that it forms part of the perfect pattern leading to your good. Living from the end. The most powerful position from which to create is the end. When you mentally dwell in the end, the state of your wish fulfilled, you align yourself with the creative current that brings all things into being. Most people live from memory rather than from imagination. They allow their present to be determined by their past. But the awakened individual lives from imagination, allowing their present to be shaped by their chosen future. To live from the end is to occupy mentally the state you desire to externalize. It is to feel the naturalness of being what you want to be. It is to experience the satisfaction of having what you want to have. As you persist in this mental occupation, the present circumstances of your life begin to rearrange themselves to conform to your assumption. People, events, and conditions align perfectly to make your invisible assumption a visible fact. This is not wishful thinking or positive affirmation. This is the operation of immutable law. Your consciousness is the only reality. What you accept as true in consciousness must externalize itself in your world. There is no power outside of your own wonderful human imagination that can override this process. The pruning process. Sometimes the manifestation of your desire requires the removal of certain elements from your life. This is the necessary pruning that precedes new growth. Just as a gardener prunes a rose bush, cutting away even healthy branches to promote more abundant flowering, so the divine process sometimes removes people, circumstances, or conditions that cannot harmonize with your new assumptions. This pruning may temporarily appear as loss, as disappointment, as abandonment. But I assure you, it is evidence not that God has abandoned his work in you, but that the process continues perfectly. Every apparent loss creates space for something better to enter. Every relationship that ends makes room for more fulfilling connection. Every door that closes propels you toward the open door that leads to your good. Trust the pruning process. Know that nothing essential to your happiness and fulfillment can be taken from you. That which is removed simply cannot accompany you into your new state of being. The law of assumption supersedes all lesser laws. Many believe themselves bound by limitations, physical laws, heredity, environment, past mistakes, the actions of others. They see these as insurmountable obstacles to the fulfillment of their desires. But I tell you, the law of assumption supersedes all lesser laws. When you firmly assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, all other factors must rearrange themselves to conform to your assumption. The laws of physics, biology, economics, and social interaction are not absolute. They are patterns based on collective assumptions. Your individual assumption, when maintained with conviction, can modify or suspend these lesser laws. This is the true meaning of miracle. Not a suspension of law, but the operation of higher law that transcends common expectations. You are not bound by your past, your genes, your environment, or the actions of others. These present obstacles only to the degree that you accept them as limitations. Change your fundamental assumptions, and these seeming obstacles become the very elements that contribute to your success. The states of consciousness. Your entire life is a movement through various states of consciousness. Each state has its own inherent conditions and circumstances. When you occupy a state of poverty consciousness, you experience the limitations and lacks associated with poverty. When you occupy a state of health consciousness, you experience the vitality and well-being associated with health. These states are not imposed upon you from without. You enter them through your assumptions, and you can leave any undesirable state by assuming yourself to be in its opposite. Many pray to be delivered from an unwanted state while mentally continuing to occupy it. This is like asking to be in Boston while refusing to leave Chicago. You cannot be in two cities or two states of consciousness simultaneously. If you desire to experience the conditions of abundance, you must vacate the state of poverty by assuming the feeling of abundance. If you wish to experience radiant health, you must vacate the state of illness by assuming the feeling of vitality. The divine process that I speak of is this movement from state to state, each bringing its corresponding conditions into your life. God is not done with you because this progression never ends. There are infinite states of consciousness available to you, each offering richer experiences than the last. The purpose of the process. You may wonder why the process unfolds as it does. Why doesn't God simply grant your desire instantly? Why the waiting, the unfolding, the bridge of incidents? The purpose of the process is not merely to give you the thing desired, but to transform you into the person who can receive and maintain it. The unfoldment perfectly paces your evolution in consciousness. If you received instantly everything your surface mind desires, Without the corresponding development in consciousness, you would either fail to recognize your good or be unable to sustain it. Consider the lottery winners who receive vast wealth without the consciousness of wealth, only to lose it all within a few years. Consider the person who achieves their dream relationship, but lacking the consciousness of being loved, sabotages it through insecurity and fear. The divine process works not just to bring you your desire, but to bring you into alignment with it. The waiting period, which so many interpret as delay or denial, is actually exact time needed for you to develop the consciousness that can contain your good. Trust this process. Know that God is not done with you. The perfect pattern of your unfoldment is proceeding exactly as it should. The promise. Beyond all manifestation of specific desires, what I call the promise, the ultimate purpose of the divine process working in you. This promise is your complete awakening to your true identity as God individualized. All lesser manifestations, wealth, health, relationships, achievements are steps leading to this supreme realization. They are important, yes, but they are not the final purpose of the process. God is not done with you because the work continues until the promise is fulfilled in you, until you awaken fully to the truth that you are God in human form, that there is no power outside of your consciousness, that you are the author of all that you experience. This awakening does not come through effort or merit. It unfolds in its appointed time, after you have exhausted your desire for lesser gifts. When you have experienced all that you wish to have and be in this world, the promise begins to stir within you. Signs of its approach include increased detachment from worldly concerns, spontaneous visions of spiritual significance, and a growing awareness of your identity with the divine I am. When the promise is fulfilled, you know beyond all doubt that you and the Father are one. Persisting through the dark night. Almost everyone who walks this path experiences what has been called the dark night of the soul, a period of profound doubt, confusion, and seeming abandonment. During this phase, all that you have believed appears to fail you. Your manifestations cease, your faith wavers, and God seems utterly absent from your life. This dark night is not evidence that the process has failed, but that it has reached a critical juncture. It is the final purification before a significant breakthrough. It is the darkness before dawn. During this period, old beliefs and attachments are being dissolved to make way for a new level of consciousness. The caterpillar must enter the darkness of the chrysalis and experience the dissolution of its caterpillar identity before it can as a butterfly. If you are experiencing such a dark night, take heart. God is not done with you. This is not abandonment, but transformation. Hold fast to your faith, not with desperate clutching, but with quiet confidence. Continue to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, even when all evidence argues against it. Those who persist through the dark night emerge with a kite that cannot be shaken, a knowledge that cannot be undermined by temporary appearances. They become masters of creation rather than victims of circumstance. The transformed mind. As you work with the law of assumption and trust the divine process, your mind undergoes a profound transformation. You develop what the Bible calls the mind of Christ, a consciousness aligned perfectly with divine creative power. This transformed mind is not swayed by appearances. It judges not by sensory evidence, but by the reality of imagination. It knows that what is seen is temporary, while what is unseen is eternal. With this mind, you no longer react to conditions. You respond to them creatively, knowing that your consciousness determines your experience, not the other way around. You no longer pray to be delivered from circumstances, but realize your power to transform them through the assumption of the state you desire. This is the true second birth, not of flesh, but of consciousness. You are born anew into a realization of your creative power and your identity with the divine I am. The community of the faithful. As you walk this path of conscious creation, you will find yourself drawn to others who understand and apply these principles. This is the true meaning of church, not an external organization, but a gathering of those who worship in spirit and in truth. You need not proselytize or convince others of what you have discovered. Those who are ready will be drawn to you naturally. Those who are not will fall away, often without conflict or drama. This sorting is not your responsibility, but part of the divine process. God is not done with them either, though their path may differ from yours for a season. Share your understanding with those who show genuine interest, but avoid casting your pearls before those who would trample them underfoot through ridicule or argumentative opposition. The truth you embody will speak more persuasively than any verbal argument. The eternal expansion. The divine process never truly ends, for consciousness is eternally expansive. There is no final state, no ultimate achievement that completes your journey. Each fulfillment opens the door to new desires, new possibilities, new expressions of the infinite creative power within you. This eternal expansion is cause for celebration, not concern. It means that life never grows stale, never becomes routine, never reaches a point of stagnation. There are always new worlds to conquer, new aspects of yourself to discover, new joys to experience. God is not done with you.
Let me begin by telling you something that may rattle the walls of your comfort. This world, this fallen, distracted, self-indulgent world, does not care about your dreams, your plans, or your potential. You are not owed applause. You are not entitled to recognition. You live in a culture where people chase validation like it's oxygen, constantly shouting their ambitions into the void, hoping anyone will listen. But I want to warn you, this path leads to ruin. You were not created to be admired. You were created to be faithful. You were not designed to perform for crowds. You were designed to walk humbly before your Creator. If you spend your life waiting for applause, you'll die with empty hands. If you waste your energy trying to be seen, you will miss the sacred work God is trying to do in the unseen. So work, not for their approval but for His glory. Work in silence, where the noise of pride cannot follow. Discipline your soul to focus not on them, not on their opinions, but on what is true, eternal, and holy. Because when no one is watching, that's when God is. And in the end, His gaze is the only one that matters. In a world that celebrates noise, silence is often misunderstood. People equate visibility with value, assuming that if something is loud, it must be important. But the truth is, the most powerful movements in your life will often begin in silence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is where strength gathers. When you choose to be quiet, when you choose to withdraw from the temptation to shout your plans to the world, you create space to listen, to hear what matters, to confront what's broken, and to allow transformation to begin in a place untainted by outside approval. Silence reveals the true nature of a person. It strips away the performance. When you are silent, there is no applause to feed your ego, no likes to affirm your decisions, no followers to shape your identity. And that's where real strength is born. Silence forces you to confront yourself. It reveals whether you are working for results or for attention. It exposes the motives that hide beneath the surface of your productivity. Are you building because you believe in the work, or because you crave the spotlight? Are you pursuing growth because it is right, or because it is popular? These are the questions that silence demands answers to. It doesn't flatter you, it purifies you. It doesn't elevate your image, it examines your heart. When you choose to live and labor in silence, you are choosing to trust the process over public perception. You are surrendering your need to be noticed so you can be strengthened in ways the world cannot see. Silence trains you to be patient. It breaks the addiction to instant validation and teaches you to work through seasons where no one claps, no one notices, and no one cares. And still you press on, because what you're building is not meant to impress people, it's meant to outlast them. In silence you learn how to persevere, not for attention but for transformation. You understand that real results take time. The roots of a tree grow deep in silence before the branches ever reach for the sky. The deeper the roots, the stronger the tree. If you rush to show off fruit before the root system is mature, the first storm will topple everything. Those who master silence are not void of ambition. They are guided by a higher calling. They are no longer slaves to recognition. Their joy is not dependent on being seen. They work not to be admired, but to be faithful. In silence, you learn to separate who you are from what others think you are. You gain clarity about your identity and your calling, because the noise of comparison is removed. You don't hear the crowd, you hear conviction. You don't chase trends, you follow truth. You don't perform, you obey. And that obedience is often what sets the course of a life that God can trust and use. Many people think silence means doing nothing, but that's far from reality. Silence is the realm where the deepest work happens. It is the soil of character, the crucible of endurance, the place where God shapes your soul far away from the distractions of public affirmation. In silence, your energy is not divided between effort and explanation. You're not constantly explaining yourself, defending your choices, or announcing your progress. You're just doing the work steadily, faithfully, quietly. And over time, the fruit of that labor will speak far louder than anything you could have said along the way. Those who thrive in silence understand that noise does not build legacies, discipline does. Shouting does not produce excellence, sacrifice does. The people who accomplish the most are often the ones who say the least until it's done. They don't need to convince others they're working. They let the work itself prove the point. They don't demand the spotlight. They're too busy sharpening their skills, strengthening their minds, and stretching their souls. While others are posting, performing, and promoting, they are praying, preparing, and pushing forward in private. There's a sacredness to this kind of living, one that is easily missed in today's culture. But it's this path, the quiet path, the disciplined path, the humble path that leads to true strength. It's in the silence that you hear God's voice more clearly, where your thoughts settle and your purpose becomes refined. You stop measuring your worth by applause and start measuring it by integrity. You're no longer in a race to be seen. You're committed to being faithful even when no one sees. That is strength. Not the kind that shows up in photos or speeches, but the kind that shows up in a life of depth, substance, and conviction. Silence also helps you resist the pull of distraction. When you are constantly surrounded by noise, by updates, opinions, and the chatter of the crowd, it's easy to lose your focus. But when you retreat into the quiet, even just within your own spirit, you regain clarity. You remember why you started. You return to your first love. You realign with your deepest convictions. You learn to move with intention instead of reacting to the expectations around you. In silence, your mind stops chasing applause and starts chasing excellence. Your soul stops performing and starts becoming. That is how strength is built, not in the echo of noise, but in the stillness of obedience. The truth that most people don't want to admit is this: the world owes you nothing. Not a single person is obligated to believe in you, support you, or recognize your worth. This life isn't structured around fairness, and expecting the world to hand you opportunities, respect, or validation just because you desire them is a path to disappointment. So many individuals move through life with a sense of entitlement, convinced that their intentions alone should be rewarded, that their struggles should earn them sympathy, and that their dreams should be supported simply because they exist. But that's not how it works. Life is not shaped by what you think you deserve. It is shaped by what you are willing to endure, overcome, and build when no one else lifts a hand to help you. There's a bitter but necessary realization that separates the strong from the weak. No one is coming to save you. No one is staying up at night worrying about your future. No one is obligated to care about your goals, your pain, or your plans. And while that may sound harsh, it is actually a liberating truth, because once you understand this, you stop waiting for someone else to fix your situation, and you start taking full responsibility for your own life. You stop depending on others to open doors and start learning how to build them yourself. You no longer cry over the absence of support. Instead, you use the silence around you as motivation to rise. The absence of attention is not your enemy, it's your training ground. People often say they are overlooked or misunderstood. But the real issue isn't whether the world sees you. It's whether you're willing to keep moving even when it doesn't. If your worth is anchored to how others treat you, your confidence will always be fragile. You'll rise and fall based on opinions. You'll chase applause like a dog chasing a shadow, always moving, never arriving. The strength you need comes from understanding that value is not assigned by the crowd. It is built in the fire of perseverance, proven by consistency and refined through resistance. When you expect nothing from others, you begin to demand more from yourself. That shift in mindset is what separates those who talk from those who transform. It's easy to blame your lack of progress on a lack of support. But the truth is, most people don't care about your goals because they are consumed with their own. The world is too busy watching its own reflection to notice your silent ambition. That's not a problem, it's a gift. Because when no one's watching, you are free to work without the pressure of being impressive. You are free to fail, to learn, to grow, and to build in peace. You don't owe the world an explanation for your process, and the world doesn't owe you applause for your effort. You simply owe it to yourself to become the person you were created to be, regardless of whether anyone claps for you or not. This kind of self-leadership requires brutal honesty. You have to face the reality that your dreams are your responsibility. No one is going to chase them for you. No one is going to fight your battles, stay up all night for your goals, or sacrificed their comfort for your vision. You have to do that. You have to wake yourself up when it's easier to sleep. You have to push forward when discouragement wraps around your neck like a chain. You have to put in the work not because someone asked you to, but because you know that what's ahead is worth it. You do it because you're driven by purpose, not praise. There's a sacred kind of strength that comes from realizing you don't need anyone's permission to grow. The moment you stop asking for validation is the moment you start creating it. You stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing yourself. You don't beg for a seat at someone else's table. You build your own and decide who gets to sit with you. And even if it's just you at first, that's enough. Because the world's silence is not a reflection of your worth. It's a challenge to rise above the need for recognition. The most successful people in the world didn't get there by waiting for someone to believe in them. They got there by believing in themselves when it felt like no one else did. They kept going when the doors were shut, when the critics were loud, and when the support was nowhere to be found. They didn't waste time being bitter about the world's indifference. They used it as fuel. The less they were seen, the harder they worked. And in time their results spoke louder than their words ever could. That's the kind of drive you need, the kind that keeps moving in silence, focused on what must be done, refusing to quit simply because no one is watching. Once you stop expecting life to be fair, you begin to work with focus. You begin to build with clarity. You begin to move without the burden of emotional dependency on others' opinions. This is not bitterness, it is maturity. It is choosing to stand on your own feet, rather than leaning on unstable ground. It is understanding that progress is not something you are given. It is something you fight for every day. And each time you take another step, each time you show up without an audience, each time you choose growth over comfort, you prove to yourself that you never needed the world to care. You just needed to care enough to keep going. Discipline over validation is a concept that runs against the grain of modern thinking, yet it holds the key to lasting success and personal integrity. In a world obsessed with being seen, applauded, and liked, discipline is often dismissed as dull or outdated. People chase emotional highs through praise, constantly refreshing their screens, checking for approval, and allowing likes and comments to dictate their sense of worth. But that kind of validation is fleeting. It fades as quickly as it comes. It's external, shallow, and addictive. What remains, what truly builds a strong, unshakable life, is the quiet, consistent force of discipline. It doesn't make noise, but it makes progress. It doesn't attract crowds, but it creates character. Validation may feel good in the moment, but discipline carries you through every moment, whether you feel good or not. The disciplined person understands that success is not built in the spotlight. It's built in the dark, in the hours when no one is watching, when there's no applause to push you forward, only purpose. Discipline doesn't rely on mood or motivation. It functions when you're tired, when you're discouraged, when you're tempted to quit. Validation, on the other hand, is a weak foundation. If your drive is based on whether or not someone praises your effort, you'll quit the moment they don't. But if your drive is rooted in discipline, you'll keep moving no matter who notices. The disciplined life is one of conviction, not convenience. It doesn't ask, do I feel like it, but rather, what must I do to honor what I've committed to? Many people have dreams, but few have discipline. And the difference between a dreamer and a doer is not inspiration, it's execution. Discipline shows up when the feelings fade. It trains you to do what's required, not just what's exciting. Validation makes you dependent on feedback. Discipline makes you independent of it. It's the difference between needing the world to tell you you're doing a good job and knowing deep within that you're walking in integrity, regardless of whether anyone affirms it. The people who leave legacies are not those who waited to be clapped for, but those who stayed consistent long after the crowd lost interest. Validation thrives on image. Discipline builds substance. Validation is about what people see. Discipline is about what they don't see. The early mornings, the sacrifices, the refusal to compromise. Validation fades when the hype dies down, but discipline remains long after the lights have gone out. That's why people who chase validation are often restless, insecure, and easily discouraged. But those who embrace discipline develop peace, strength, and endurance, because they are not moved by the noise of public opinion. They are anchored in something deeper, something internal. They show up because it's who they are, not because it's who others expect them to be. It's easy to start when everyone's watching, when people are cheering you on. But what happens when the room is empty, when the support is gone, when the compliments stop coming? That's when discipline reveals its power. It doesn't stop just because no one's looking. In fact, it thrives in isolation. It thrives in silence. Because discipline is not for show, it's for growth. It's not about impressing others. It's about improving yourself. That internal commitment is what separates amateurs from professionals, wishful thinking from real results. Most people want quick results and constant affirmation, but discipline teaches patience. It tells you that greatness is a slow grind, not a quick sprint. It teaches you to lay one brick at a time, to value progress over popularity, and to keep going even when your emotions are screaming for comfort. Discipline doesn't argue, it acts. It doesn't wait, it works. It's the quiet force that turns goals into habits and habits into excellence. And the more you commit to it, the less you care about being seen, because you start to understand that true success doesn't come from being noticed. It comes from being prepared. There's also a kind of dignity that comes with discipline. It protects you from being manipulated by flattery or crushed by criticism. You become stable, not swayed by every comment or compliment. You stop living for applause and start living with purpose. You don't bend to trends or chase attention. You build something real, something that lasts. And in a world that is constantly shifting, that kind of stability is rare and powerful. It allows you to walk with confidence, not because others tell you you're enough, but because you've proven to yourself that you are faithful to your calling. Discipline is a decision you make every day. It's not a one-time burst of effort, it's a lifestyle. It's choosing to train your mind, guard your time, and stay focused on what matters. It's waking up early when you'd rather sleep, showing up when you'd rather disappear, and staying committed when you'd rather quit. It doesn't feel glamorous, but it produces glory. It doesn't feel exciting, but it creates excellence. The longer you practice it, the more it shapes you into someone who doesn't need to be told to keep going, because you've already decided that stopping isn't an option. Discipline is what carries you when motivation is nowhere to be found, and it's what prepares you for moments you didn't even know you were being shaped for. Focusing on purpose instead of applause is one of the most difficult but necessary shifts a person must make to live a life of depth, authenticity, and endurance. Applause feels good. It's immediate. It tells you that someone sees you, that someone approves of you, that your efforts matter. But applause is unstable. It's based on perception, not truth. It comes and goes with the tides of popularity, opinion, and mood. Purpose, on the other hand, is solid. It doesn't waver when people change their minds. It doesn't disappear when the spotlight fades. It remains when the crowd walks away. Living a life driven by purpose means you have learned to measure your success by obedience, not by how many people are clapping for you. It means you've matured past the need for constant validation and discovered the deeper strength that comes from knowing why you're doing what you're doing. When you live for applause, your work becomes performative. You begin tailoring your effort not to what's right, but to what's praised. You adjust your actions based on what brings attention instead of what builds substance. And over time, you start to lose yourself. You forget why you started. You begin chasing reactions instead of results. You become more concerned with how things look than how things actually are. But purpose doesn't allow that kind of compromise. Purpose requires you to be consistent even when no one notices, faithful even when no one applauds, and committed even when your name is never mentioned. Purpose keeps you grounded when applause tries to sweep you off your feet. The danger of living for applause is that it creates a dependency. You start needing it to function, needing it to feel secure, needing it to keep going. And the moment it stops, the moment people are silent, uninterested, or distracted, you begin to question everything. But when you're driven by purpose, you keep going regardless. You don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need a room full of cheerleaders. You just need to remember the mission. You just need to stay connected to the reason you began in the first place. That connection becomes your anchor in storms, your fire in cold seasons, your focus in a world full of distractions. Purpose teaches you to say no to things that may be popular but are not aligned with your values. It teaches you to turn down opportunities that offer applause but compromise your integrity. It teaches you to wait, to walk, and to work according to a deeper conviction, even when others rush ahead seeking recognition. It transforms your mindset from how can I be seen to how can I serve, from how can I gain attention to how can I make a real impact. Purpose doesn't compete with others. It competes with complacency. It doesn't seek followers. It seeks fruit. And that fruit is often invisible for a long time. It grows in secret, nourished by sacrifice, watered by patience, and protected by resolve. Many people never reach their true potential because they abandon purpose in pursuit of applause. They start strong with pure intentions, but somewhere along the way they begin performing for the crowd. And when the crowd loses interest, so do they. They allow the silence of others to silence their mission. They stop showing up because no one is watching. But that's not purpose, that's performance. Purpose keeps showing up even when it feels like you're alone. It reminds you that what you're building matters, even if no one claps for it. It reminds you that the impact of your life cannot always be measured in likes, shares, or praise, but in the quiet transformation it brings to the people who encounter it. There is a kind of freedom that comes from choosing purpose over applause. It frees you from comparison, from performance anxiety, from the pressure to constantly prove yourself. You begin to walk with clarity. You begin to make decisions not based on trends but on truth. You're not rushed by the noise around you because you're led by the stillness within you. And that stillness is where real wisdom lives. When you're no longer living for applause, you can finally hear the voice of purpose clearly. You can finally pour your energy into what truly matters instead of wasting it trying to be liked. Living with purpose also means you're willing to endure seasons of obscurity. It means being faithful in hidden places. It means doing the work, making the sacrifice, showing up fully even when no one acknowledges you. Because purpose is not about being impressive, it's about being effective. And effectiveness often grows in the unseen. The seeds you plant in silence will one day bloom in ways that matter far more than fleeting praise. And when that harvest comes, it won't be because the world clapped. It will be because you stayed rooted. Those who live for applause will always be adjusting, always performing, always seeking approval. But those who live for purpose are steady. They are focused. They are not swayed by opinions because they are grounded in conviction. They know that applause may feel good for a moment, but purpose will carry them for a lifetime. They work not to be admired, but to be obedient to the assignment they've been given. They sacrifice recognition to gain impact. And in the end, it is not the loudest lives that leave the greatest legacy. It is the most faithful ones. Growth happens in the hidden place, in the quiet corners of life, where there are no cameras, no applause, and no distractions trying to steal your focus. The deepest transformation does not happen on stages or in front of audiences. It happens when no one is watching, when no one is listening, when no one even knows what you're doing. It's in those moments of silence and obscurity that your foundation is laid. That's where your strength is built, your discipline is forged, and your character is tested. Everyone wants to shine, but few are willing to stay planted in the dirt long enough to grow roots. And without strong roots, nothing truly lasts. Most people underestimate the value of hidden seasons because they crave visibility. They feel like if their work isn't being seen, it must not matter. But that mindset is a lie. Some of the most powerful things in your life will happen far away from recognition. Think of the seed buried beneath the ground. It's completely hidden, invisible to the eye, seemingly inactive. But beneath the surface, something sacred is happening. The seed is splitting open, forming roots, digging deep. There is no glory in that process, no applause for its effort, no audience cheering it on. But without that process, no tree will ever grow. And that is exactly what the hidden place is for. It prepares you to rise. The hidden place is often uncomfortable. It's lonely. It can feel like nothing is moving forward, like everything is standing still. But the truth is, what you can't see is often more important than what you can. In hidden seasons, your endurance is tested, your patience is refined, your motives are purified. It is in the hidden place that you learn to show up even when you're not being noticed, to give your best even when no one is clapping. That's where humility is developed. That's where integrity is built. And if you try to bypass that process, if you rush through your hidden seasons, you risk rising too quickly on a foundation that cannot hold you. There's a reason why God often develops people in private before releasing them into public influence. Because if you are not strengthened in private, public pressure will destroy you. Visibility comes with weight, and only those who have been trained in the hidden place can carry that weight without collapsing. It's in those quiet, unseen moments where you're tempted to quit but choose to keep going that something unshakable is formed inside of you. The person who keeps showing up, who keeps working, who keeps growing even when no one notices, that person becomes unbreakable. They don't just perform well, they endure well. In the hidden place, you learn to listen. You hear your own thoughts more clearly. You become aware of the areas where you need to grow, not for the sake of image, but for the sake of integrity. There's no need to impress anyone, so you can be honest about your weaknesses. You can confront your fears, your doubts, your ego. You can develop discipline without performing. You can grow in strength without seeking validation. That kind of growth is not always visible to others, but it becomes evident over time. Because when the moment comes for you to step into the light, you carry with you a quiet power, the kind that only comes from being faithful in secret. Growth in the hidden place is sacred because it is slow. It's not rushed by deadlines or driven by competition. It doesn't chase attention. It embraces process. It trusts timing. It's not about impressing others. It's about being made whole. You develop a resilience that isn't loud but is real. You learn that your value is not tied to being noticed but to being prepared. And preparation always takes time. The hidden place becomes a womb for your calling, a space where you are shaped, stretched, and strengthened for what's ahead. And when you finally emerge, you are not just performing, you are embodying everything you've become. The world may overlook your quiet growth, but the fruit of that growth cannot be denied. One day people will look at your strength, your peace, your wisdom, and wonder how you got there. They'll see the branches but not the roots. They'll admire the harvest but not understand the planting. But you will know what it cost, how long it took, and how many silent nights you kept going when everything in you wanted to stop. That's the power of the hidden place. It doesn't just prepare you, it proves you. It confirms whether your commitment is real, whether your faith is anchored, whether your vision is worth the sacrifice. Many give up in hidden seasons because they mistake invisibility for insignificance. But being unseen does not mean being unimportant. Some of your most important work will happen when no one knows your name. It is in those private hours, those unseen sacrifices, those lonely decisions to stay disciplined, that greatness is born. Growth is not glamorous, it's gritty. It's filled with repetition, resistance, and rejection. But if you embrace the hidden place instead of despising it, you will emerge not just with results but with roots. And it is those roots that will sustain you when storms come. Because growth that happens in silence is not easily shaken. It is rooted, it is real, and it will last. Approval from God, not man, is the only approval that truly matters if you want to live a life of purpose, conviction, and eternal weight. The need for human approval is one of the most powerful traps that can enslave a person, because it offers temporary satisfaction while slowly pulling your soul into compromise. When you live for the approval of man, you begin to adjust your values, your behavior, and even your calling based on what pleases others, rather than what honors God. You start making decisions based on popularity instead of purpose. You become more concerned with how people perceive you than with how God sees you. And in doing so, you begin to lose your authenticity, your conviction, and eventually your spiritual clarity. Living for the approval of people creates a cycle that never ends. No matter how much affirmation you receive, it's never enough. The more you get, the more you crave. You begin needing constant reassurance just to feel stable, just to feel seen. And the moment someone disapproves, you fall into insecurity and self-doubt. This is because human approval is inconsistent. People change. Their standards shift. What they praise one day, they may criticize the next. Their opinions are shaped by their own limitations, their own wounds, their own preferences. Anchoring your life to such unstable ground will always leave you shaken. But the approval of God is firm. It is based not on your performance, but on your obedience. Not on your popularity, but on your posture before Him. When He says, "Well done," it's not because you impressed anyone, it's because you honored Him, even in silence, even in suffering, even in seasons where no one else understood your choices. Seeking God's approval forces you to live with integrity. It keeps you aligned with truth even when truth is not trendy. It teaches you to prioritize obedience over outcomes. It reminds you that faithfulness in God's eyes is more valuable than fame in the world's eyes. When you live this way, your decisions start to reflect eternity. You stop asking what people will think and start asking what God has already said. You stop chasing relevance and start pursuing righteousness. And even if the world calls you foolish, even if they ignore or reject you, there is peace in knowing that heaven sees you and heaven approves. Approval from God is not something that is earned through perfection, but it is something you align with through surrender. It comes when you submit your will to His, when you trust His ways above your own, when you walk in His truth even when the path is narrow and painful. It requires courage, because there will be times when pleasing God means disappointing people. There will be moments where obedience isolates you, where faithfulness costs you opportunities, where standing firm in truth separates you from those who only applaud compromise. But it is in those moments where your heart is tested, where your loyalty is revealed, where your identity is no longer shaped by the noise of the crowd, but by the still holy whisper of God's voice saying, "You are mine." When you live for God's approval, you are no longer desperate to be liked, because you are already fully loved. You are no longer anxious to be understood, because you are already known. You are no longer trying to fit in, because you are called to stand apart. This frees you from the exhausting game of trying to please everyone. It frees you from the fear of rejection, from the trap of performance, from the chains of comparison. You begin to walk with a quiet strength, a holy confidence that comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. This doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you secure. It doesn't make you proud, it makes you humble, because you realize that every ounce of favor, every breath of purpose, every open door is not because of your charisma, but because of God's grace. God's approval may not always come with applause. It may not get you likes, followers, or recognition, but it will give you peace. And that peace is more powerful than any platform. It will guard your heart in a world full of noise. It will anchor your soul in seasons of uncertainty. It will keep you steady when critics rise, when doors close, when storms hit. Because if God is pleased, you don't need anyone else to be. If God has called you, it doesn't matter who walks away. If God has affirmed you, you don't have to beg for attention or strive to prove yourself. His approval is enough. The more deeply you root your identity in God's approval, the more resilient you become. You're not swayed by flattery, and you're not broken by criticism. You learn to receive correction without crumbling, and to walk through rejection without resentment. You're no longer controlled by public opinion, because you live for a private audience of one. This transforms your relationships, your work, your worship. You stop using people to feel valuable, and you start serving them from a place of already being valued. You stop hustling for validation, and start walking in your divine assignment with clarity and courage. This kind of life may not always be easy, but it is powerful, it is rare, and it is deeply fulfilling, because in the end the applause of people will fade, their memories will dim, and their opinions will pass, but the approval of God will remain. It will echo into eternity. It will follow you beyond this life into the next. And when you finally stand before Him, it will not matter how many liked you, praised you, or admired you. All that will matter is whether you lived in a way that honored Him. Consistency builds character in a way that nothing else can. It's not the grand gestures or the rare moments of excellence that define who you are. It's what you do every single day when no one is looking, when motivation is gone, and when the path feels boring or repetitive. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about showing up with the same integrity, the same effort, and the same commitment whether conditions are ideal or not. It's easy to start something with excitement, to make bold promises when inspiration is fresh, but it's much harder to remain faithful to the process when the excitement fades and the work becomes routine. Yet it's in that slow, steady pace that your true character begins to take form. The people who become unshakable are not the ones who wait for motivation to strike. They are the ones who train themselves to keep going regardless of how they feel. Consistency teaches you to push through boredom, to ignore distractions, and to keep your eyes on the bigger picture. Every time you follow through on your word, you reinforce discipline within yourself. You prove to your own mind that your decisions are not based on convenience but on conviction. This kind of consistency strengthens your inner resolve. It teaches you to honor your commitments, not because it's easy but because it's right. You begin to see that greatness is not made in moments, it's made in routines. It's the daily habits, the unseen sacrifices, the repeated choices that build a life of excellence and trustworthiness. Without consistency, talent is wasted. Without consistency, potential goes unrealized. Anyone can have a good day or put on a good show for a short time, but character is what's left after the applause stops, after the opportunities fade, and after the test of time has run its course. And character can only be built through a lifestyle of consistency. It doesn't come from good intentions. It comes from disciplined action. You may not always feel like being excellent, but consistency pushes you to be excellent anyway. You may not feel like being kind, focused, or honest, but consistency reminds you that character is not about feelings, it's about standards. Consistency also builds credibility. When people see that your actions align with your words day after day, they begin to trust you. They know they can depend on you, not because of a moment of brilliance, but because of a pattern of integrity. That kind of reputation is not built overnight. It's built through small decisions, through steady effort, and through a refusal to give up when things get hard. And the most powerful thing is that even when no one sees your effort, it's still shaping you. Even in private, your consistency is forming the kind of person you'll be in public. Your habits in secret will eventually become your reputation in the open. There's a kind of quiet strength that comes from being consistent. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, and it's not attention-seeking, but it's powerful. It's the kind of strength that endures when everything else falls apart. It's the kind of strength that doesn't rely on applause or outside pressure to keep going. People who live with consistency are grounded. They are not swayed by emotion or circumstance. They don't let failure stop them, and they don't let success distract them. They stay the course. They stay committed. And that kind of character becomes unshakable over time. Consistency also refines your focus. When you practice something over and over again, you start to eliminate the unnecessary. You become more efficient, more strategic, and more aligned with your purpose. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter, because your discipline sharpens your vision. You begin to understand that every small step counts. Every action, no matter how small, becomes a building block toward the future you are creating. And in that process, your confidence grows, not because everything is easy, but because you know that you're doing what you said you would do, day after day, without compromise. There's also a healing that happens in consistency. For those who've experienced failure, inconsistency, or chaos in the past, choosing to be consistent becomes a way of reclaiming stability. It becomes a form of personal redemption. Every time you keep going, even when it's difficult, you're writing a new story. You're proving to yourself that you are not bound by the patterns of your past. You are not a slave to your feelings. You are not driven by your weaknesses. You are becoming someone new, someone trustworthy, disciplined and full of endurance. That transformation doesn't happen through emotion or inspiration. It happens through the long obedience in the same direction. It happens through repetition. It happens when you wake up each day and decide to keep building, keep pushing, and keep believing even when nothing around you has changed yet. The power of consistency is that it compounds. Each day of discipline builds on the last. Every small effort becomes a seed, and over time those seeds begin to bloom into something powerful. You may not see results immediately, but that doesn't mean your work is in vain. In fact, the most important changes often happen before the results become visible. Your mindset shifts. Your resilience grows. Your habits become stronger. You're no longer waiting for a breakthrough. You are becoming the kind of person who can sustain one. And that kind of growth, the kind that is earned through faithfulness, is the kind that will last. Because it wasn't built on talent or hype. It was built on character. And that character was formed, tested, and refined through consistency. Let this be the truth that settles deep in your spirit. You do not need the world's applause to live a meaningful, powerful, and purpose-driven life. You do not need permission to grow, to rise, to transform. What you need is discipline, silence, focus, and the unwavering commitment to walk the path even when no one claps, no one watches, and no one understands. The world may never notice the work you do in the dark, but God sees it. The growth that happens in private will one day bear fruit in public. But even if it doesn't, it was never about recognition to begin with. You are not here to perform. You are here to become. You are here to build something that honors the calling placed within you. Work hard. Work quietly. Trust the hidden place. Focus on the only approval that matters. And let your consistency speak louder than your words. Because in the end, it is not the noise that leaves a legacy. It is the character forged in silence. There comes a moment in your journey when detachment becomes not indifference but power. You are no longer tossed by the opinions of others, no longer enslaved by the need to be seen, heard, or validated. You move in silence, not because you are weak, but because you have learned the strength of inner stillness. In this teaching, we explore the art of acting as though you do not care, not to abandon love or kindness, but to free the imagination from the grip of fear, doubt, and outside control. For what you feel deeply within, with calm certainty, becomes your reality. To act as if you do not care is to rise above appearances, to refuse emotional entanglement with what contradicts your inner vision. When you master this quiet detachment, you no longer chase outcomes. They are drawn to you, effortlessly, because your state of being has become unshakable. The power of inner detachment is not rooted in apathy or coldness, but in profound self-mastery. It is the ability to remain unmoved by the external world while being fully engaged with the internal reality one has chosen to accept as true. When an individual becomes emotionally entangled with every event, opinion, or circumstance, they surrender their creative power to the outer world. The imagination, which is the only true reality, becomes enslaved to the senses, reacting instead of creating. But inner detachment is the spiritual act of reclaiming this power. It is the refusal to let appearances dictate one's inner state. It is not a denial of the outer world, but a recognition that it is nothing more than a shadow cast by a deeper, invisible cause, one's inner assumptions. To detach inwardly is to live in the world but not be of it. It is to see lack, limitation, or rejection without bowing to it. This detachment is not achieved through force or suppression, but through deep understanding. The outer world is a reflection, and as such it holds no authority of its own. One must come to understand that the moment an event, word, or outcome provokes an emotional response, the creative direction is being reversed. Instead of impressing the subconscious mind with the desired reality, one begins to reinforce the very things they wish to escape. Inner detachment allows the mind to remain fixed on the end, the fulfilled state, without wavering due to contradictory evidence. This is not passivity. It is deliberate and powerful stillness. The person who has mastered inner detachment does not react. They respond from a higher awareness. They are not shaken by the momentary appearances of delay or denial, because they know that these are merely shadows dissolving under the light of a persistent inner assumption. The detachment does not mean one does not feel or care. It means feelings are no longer dictated by the outer. Instead, feelings are selected in harmony with the inner reality being imagined. This is true freedom, because it places the power of choice back where it belongs within. When one practices inner detachment, they begin to recognize the vast difference between reacting to circumstances and creating them. The detached individual can hold a vision of abundance while walking through scarcity, can feel loved while alone, can feel successful while still unnoticed. Their emotional fidelity is no longer tied to what the world shows but to what the soul knows. This is what gives rise to effortless manifestation, because the outer must eventually reflect the persistent inner state. When inner detachment is practiced, attention is no longer fragmented by conflicting beliefs or anxieties. It becomes unified, powerful, and direct. Through detachment, one begins to withdraw power from the external stimuli that once ruled their moods and actions. The words of others lose their grip, situations lose their weight, and conditions lose their permanence. What once evoked fear or anger now becomes neutral, because the individual understands that none of it has creative authority unless they give it. Detachment empowers them to observe everything and react to nothing that contradicts their chosen end. This is the mark of one who truly creates with imagination and faith. This inward separation from the outer facts does not create emotional distance in relationships or life. Rather, it frees the individual to engage with the world without being imprisoned by it. A detached mind can give more freely, love more deeply, and act more boldly, because it no longer operates from insecurity or dependence. It is grounded in a reality that is unseen but deeply felt, and therefore unshakable. The drama of life, with all its highs and lows, becomes less of a force to endure and more of a theater that reflects one's inner dialogue. To detach inwardly also means to relinquish the compulsive need to control how things unfold. It is the surrender of the how in favor of the what. The individual no longer seeks to manipulate conditions or force outcomes, but trusts that the sustained assumption of the wish fulfilled is enough. This trust cannot exist without detachment, because worry and control are signs that the inner state is not yet fully accepted. The moment one can calmly assume without interference from fear, they have entered the realm of the miraculous. The power lies not in doing more, but in believing more. Inner detachment also creates space for intuitive guidance to emerge. When the mind is no longer clouded by emotional noise or external distractions, a deeper wisdom begins to rise. Inspired action becomes effortless, because it flows from a place of clarity. One is no longer driven by desperation, but led by inner certainty. This certainty is not manufactured. It arises naturally when the individual no longer doubts the reality of their imagined state. That imagined state becomes more real to them than anything their senses suggest. In detachment, the feeling of I already have it becomes dominant. The outer may not yet reflect it, but it becomes irrelevant, because the truth has already been claimed inwardly. This claiming is not loud or boastful. It is quiet, subtle, and deeply rooted. It does not depend on repetition or affirmation alone, but on the genuine feeling of possession. And this feeling cannot be fully maintained unless one is detached from all contradicting appearances. The moment you can look at the world and not be moved by it, you are free. You are no longer creating in reaction but in authority. Emotional mastery over external triggers begins with the realization that no person, event, or circumstance truly has the power to dictate your state of being unless you grant it. Most people move through life at the mercy of their surroundings, reacting unconsciously to what others say or do, shifting their emotions according to how things appear or unfold. This reactive state creates a life of instability, where peace is temporary and confidence is conditional. But the one who begins to master their emotions understands that stability is not found in the world, but is cultivated from within. When the mind is conditioned to rise above the push and pull of outer influences, the emotional state becomes a sacred ground where only truth can enter. Emotional mastery does not mean one stops feeling. Rather, it means feelings are no longer involuntary reactions, but intentional choices. The mind becomes disciplined, trained to observe instead of immediately respond. In this stillness there is great power, because it allows the individual to choose alignment with their vision rather than surrender to passing moods. The world may bring a wave, but the mastered mind does not drown. It floats, it watches, it waits, and it moves only when the waters are calm within. This level of self-possession cannot be faked. It must be cultivated through awareness and repetition. Every moment where one chooses stillness over reaction strengthens the inner foundation. To master emotions is to become aware of their origin. Every feeling arises from a thought, and every thought is a product of belief. When an external trigger provokes anger, fear, or doubt, it is not the event itself that causes the feeling, it is the meaning assigned to it. Once this is understood, the individual gains the ability to interrupt the pattern, to step back and ask, what am I believing right now that makes this situation feel threatening or disappointing? That space between stimulus and response becomes a doorway to freedom. Instead of immediately reacting, one can shift the narrative, change the meaning, and therefore change the feeling. As one develops this discipline, old emotional patterns begin to dissolve. The anger that once erupted when someone criticized is now met with quiet curiosity. The fear that used to arise when plans didn't unfold is replaced with trust in divine timing. The sadness that once lingered after rejection now becomes a gentle nudge back to inner worth. Mastery is not about suppressing emotions. It is about tracing them to their root and choosing a better seed. It is the art of feeling deeply without being ruled, of allowing emotion to pass through without attaching identity to it. You are not your anger, your sadness, your fear. You are the awareness behind it, and once you remember that, you regain your authority. Mastery of emotion also leads to greater clarity of desire. When the mind is no longer clouded by chaos or reaction, it becomes easier to feel the difference between a fleeting urge and a true calling. You begin to recognize which desires come from the ego and which rise from the soul. Emotional mastery brings alignment, and in alignment, manifestation becomes natural. You are no longer fighting your inner state with every new circumstance, no longer losing ground every time something goes wrong. Instead, you maintain the mood of the wish fulfilled, regardless of what the senses report. And that mood, when sustained, is what reshapes your outer world. One of the greatest benefits of mastering emotions is the end of internal sabotage. Many people sabotage their desires not because they don't believe they are possible, but because they let momentary feelings convince them otherwise. Doubt sneaks in after a bad day. Fear creeps in after a rejection. Frustration clouds the vision after a delay. But the mastered soul knows that these moments are illusions meant to test fidelity to the imagined end. They are not signs of failure, only opportunities to return to faith. Each time you choose calm over chaos, presence over panic, you are proving to your subconscious mind that the vision you hold is more real than the facts you see. The practice of emotional mastery requires vigilance. It means becoming a watchman of the inner temple, guarding against thoughts and impressions that do not serve your higher intention. It means paying attention to how you feel and recognizing when you are drifting into old patterns. It means having the humility to pause, breathe, and choose again. This is not easy, but it is liberating, because with every choice, you move closer to becoming the one who decides rather than reacts. You take back the pen and begin to write your life deliberately, not under the pressure of circumstance, but in the quiet confidence of creative authority. Mastery also brings peace. Not the peace that comes when everything is perfect, but the peace that remains even when nothing is. This peace is the result of knowing that no outer force has the power to disturb the inner kingdom unless it is invited. And because you no longer grant access to chaos, life begins to mirror that serenity. People respond differently, situations unfold more gently, and even the storms that do come feel less threatening. Because you have built a refuge within yourself, you become the calm in the storm, not because the storm no longer exists, but because it no longer rules you. As you move deeper into this awareness, you begin to feel what it means to be emotionally sovereign. You are no longer a puppet of life's changing winds. You are steady, not stagnant, peaceful, not passive, responsive, not reactive. This emotional sovereignty becomes the soil from which all deliberate creation grows. It is the quiet strength that allows you to persist, to assume, to believe, even in the face of contradiction. And in that strength, reality begins to bend, not by force, but by fidelity to your chosen inner state. Creating through calm assumption is the practice of accepting the end as real before it ever appears, and doing so with a quiet, unshakable confidence that does not demand proof. It is the opposite of striving, forcing, or begging. It is resting in the knowing that what you have assumed to be true is already yours. This calm assumption is not built on external signs or logical evidence. It is built on inner conviction. It is a state of consciousness where you feel the reality of your desire so vividly that you no longer need to see it with your physical eyes to believe in it. You walk, speak, and move as if the thing you long for has already arrived, and you do so in peace, not in desperation. This internal posture shapes your energy, your actions, your decisions, and ultimately your world. Calm assumption is a spiritual act, not an intellectual one. It is not about repeating affirmations mechanically or pretending something is true with anxious energy. It is about sinking into the feeling that your wish is already fulfilled. This feeling becomes your anchor, and because it is calm, it cannot be disturbed by what appears to contradict it. The calmness is essential because it proves that the assumption has taken root. When you are calm about something, it means you are not trying to make it happen. You know it is done. You don't check the clock, the phone, or the results every 5 minutes because you are already living from the end. The assumption becomes a quiet current beneath all you do, guiding your behavior and responses without needing to be constantly rehearsed or protected. In calm assumption, there is no resistance. You are not trying to overcome fear or doubt through effort. You have simply chosen the feeling of the desired outcome and allowed it to settle within you. This feeling begins to color how you see the world, not in dramatic ways but subtly and powerfully. You begin to expect different things. You anticipate goodness. You notice opportunities you might have missed before. You move differently, not because you are trying to manipulate results, but because you are no longer operating from lack. The lack has already been replaced in your inner world, and so your actions flow naturally from abundance, confidence, and clarity. This creative process is not always visible to others, and that is the beauty of it. It is done in silence. You may still face the same challenges, but inwardly you have changed positions. You are no longer the seeker. You are the one who has found. This inner switch is what brings about transformation. Calm assumption is not about forcing your will. It is about entering into a state of fulfillment so fully that reality begins to reshape itself around your belief. And the more you dwell in this state, the less effort is required. Creation becomes effortless, not because nothing is happening, but because everything is being drawn to you in harmony with the state you now occupy. Many fail to create their desired reality because they assume with anxiety. They try to hold on to the vision with clenched fists, always fearing it will slip away. But this fear negates the assumption. True assumption is relaxed, not tense. It trusts rather than grasps. It flows rather than fights. To assume calmly is to understand that you are one with the very power that creates worlds, and that power does not strain, it speaks, and it is done. The imagination must become your dwelling place, not a place you visit temporarily. You must live in the scene of your fulfilled desire so naturally that to act otherwise would feel unnatural. As you continue to assume calmly, you'll notice that your reactions begin to change. Things that would have shaken you in the past now feel irrelevant. You no longer overanalyze, overcompensate, or overthink, because the end you desire is already settled in your being. People may not understand your stillness, and that's okay. They are reacting to the world as it is, while you are responding to the world as it will be. But that future world is not distant. It is already forming in your inner state. Your calm assumption is its blueprint, and as long as you remain faithful to it, the outer world will eventually align. This process of creation through calm assumption also teaches patience, not the kind of waiting that involves anxiety, but the kind that rests in confidence. You are no longer waiting for something, you are waiting with something. You are holding it within, nurturing it, and allowing it to unfold at the right moment. This detachment from time allows you to stay aligned with your assumption without constantly sabotaging it with worry or doubt. You trust the unseen more than the seen, and that trust becomes your greatest power. Over time, calm assumption becomes more than a tool, it becomes your nature. You begin to meet all of life's situations from a higher state of being. Whether you are interacting with people, facing setbacks, or navigating daily responsibilities, you do so from the peace of knowing that your inner world is the true cause. You no longer chase outcomes, you carry outcomes within. And because of that, you stop living in reaction and start living in creation. You do not force things into being. You rest in the knowing that they already are. This is the quiet power of calm assumption. It is subtle, it is sacred, and it is unstoppable. Releasing the need for validation is one of the most liberating steps a person can take on the path to true manifestation. It requires facing the deeply ingrained desire to be approved of, recognized and affirmed by others, and choosing instead to root identity in self-awareness and inner conviction. From early life, people are conditioned to seek external validation from parents, teachers, friends, and society. And this habit, if not confronted, continues to control emotional responses and even influence life decisions. But manifestation begins with self-definition. The world cannot mirror back to you a reality you haven't already claimed for yourself. And that claim is weakened every time you look outside yourself for confirmation of your worth or vision. The need to be validated is a signal that you do not fully believe in the truth of your own assumption. And if you don't believe it, the outer world has no reason to reflect it. The need for validation is often disguised as a desire for love, support, or affirmation. But at its root, it is a lack of inner certainty. It comes from not feeling that who you are or what you desire is enough unless someone else agrees. This need makes you reactive, because your emotional state becomes tied to others' opinions or behavior. A compliment lifts you, while silence or criticism shakes you. This emotional instability interrupts the creative process, because instead of dwelling in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are constantly checking to see if the world approves. That checking creates resistance. It breaks the flow of assumption. True creation happens in silence, not in performance. When you release the need for validation, you begin to create from within, for no audience but yourself. And that is where true power is born. Letting go of validation does not mean becoming disconnected or cold. It means standing so firmly in your chosen state that no external opinion can uproot it. You do not need to announce your dreams, defend your desires, or justify your beliefs to anyone. You simply live from them. When you assume quietly and consistently, the results speak louder than any explanation could. Most people want others to believe in their dreams before they do, but this is backward. Your world can only mirror what you have already internalized as true. Validation from others cannot build the inner foundation. It can only echo what's already there. So when you stop seeking it, you redirect all of your energy back to where it belongs, the inner world where real creation begins. Another trap of validation is comparison. When you constantly measure yourself against others, your focus shifts from imagination to observation. You watch others' success and begin to question your own timing, your own value. This creates doubt, envy, and discouragement, all of which weaken your assumption. But when you release validation, you also release comparison. You recognize that your path is unique, your desires are sacred, and your timeline is not dictated by someone else's progress. You stop looking sideways and start looking inward, where the truth of your being lies. This inward gaze is what fuels imagination and restores clarity. You are no longer trying to compete, you are trying to create, and that is an entirely different frequency. Releasing the need for validation also strengthens the ability to persist. When you no longer need applause or encouragement to stay the course, you become unstoppable. You no longer abandon your assumptions when no one else sees your vision. You remain loyal to your end even when others doubt it. This loyalty to the unseen is what separates those who manifest effortlessly from those who struggle. The need for validation creates a dependency on signs, on reassurance, on quick results to keep believing. But when you are free of that need, you can remain in the state of the wish fulfilled regardless of appearances. You trust the process because you trust yourself. As you practice detaching from validation, you begin to experience a deeper level of peace. You are no longer worried about being misunderstood, overlooked, or underestimated. You realize those things have no real power unless you give them emotional energy. Your self-worth is no longer negotiable. It is not up for debate, and it does not rise or fall based on who approves. This inner stability becomes magnetic. Paradoxically, when you no longer need validation, you often receive more of it, not because you crave it, but because people are drawn to those who are secure within themselves. But by then you no longer depend on it, and that makes all the difference. One of the final shifts that occurs when you let go of validation is that you begin to act more authentically. Without the pressure to impress or please others, you make choices aligned with your true desires. You speak more freely, move more boldly, and trust your intuition more deeply. You no longer edit yourself to fit into others' expectations. This authenticity strengthens your connection to imagination, because you are no longer trying to fit your dreams into someone else's idea of what is acceptable or realistic. You simply choose what feels alive within you and live from that place, without apology. To live without the need for validation is to reclaim your identity as the creator of your reality. It is to say, I decide what I believe, I choose what I accept, I assume what I desire, and I do so without waiting for permission. It is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is not rebellion, it is remembrance. You are not here to convince anyone of your worth. You are here to express it, to embody it, and to manifest from it. And when that becomes your posture, the world begins to bend to match the frequency of your self-assured inner state. Silence as a tool of manifestation is one of the most underestimated yet powerful principles in the creative process. In a world where noise is constant and voices are everywhere, silence becomes a sacred space where the seeds of imagination are planted and nourished without interference. Most people feel the urge to talk about their desires, share their intentions, and explain their goals to others in hopes of support or validation. But often this outward expression leaks the very energy required to bring those desires to life. True manifestation thrives in the unseen, and silence is the environment that allows it to grow without judgment, doubt, or contradiction. The moment you speak prematurely about a vision, you risk exposing it to opinions, projections, and resistance that were never part of your original assumption. Silence keeps your inner world sealed, allowing it to develop undisturbed by the noise of the outer world. When you dwell in silence, you become more sensitive to your own inner dialogue. You begin to hear the subtle whispers of intuition, the quiet urgings of your imagination, the soft suggestions from the deeper self that often get drowned out in constant chatter. In silence, the mind becomes a mirror, showing you exactly where your assumptions lie. If fear is present, it surfaces clearly. If confidence is present, it stabilizes. Silence gives you a chance to observe without reacting, to notice without being pulled, to feel the truth of your inner state without explanation. It is in this quiet awareness that real shifts take place. You are not performing for anyone, you are aligning within. This alignment does not need to be broadcast. It only needs to be felt. And once it is felt consistently, the external world will begin to rearrange itself to reflect it. Silence also protects your assumption. Every time you speak about your desires to someone who does not understand or believe in the process, you allow their energy to mingle with your intention. Even if they mean well, their doubt can plant seeds of hesitation in your mind. Over time, these seeds grow into uncertainty, and the original clarity becomes diluted. But when you keep your assumption private, it remains pure, untouched, and personal. It becomes something sacred between you and your imagination, something that only you can see and feel. You do not need to explain it, justify it, or debate it. You simply embody it. This internal ownership becomes far more powerful than external persuasion. Manifestation through silence is not passive. It is a deeply active inner process that requires discipline and intention. You are constantly selecting thoughts, choosing feelings, and anchoring yourself in the state of the wish fulfilled. But you are doing it quietly. You are doing it in the moments when no one is watching, in the space between words, in the pauses of life. These are the moments that shape reality more than the loud declarations. The power of silence lies in its ability to bypass resistance. It allows the assumption to bypass the critical mind, which often argues against your desire when it is spoken out loud. Silence bypasses the logic that demands evidence, and in doing so strengthens the feeling of knowing. Silence also deepens faith. When you no longer feel the need to talk about your manifestation, it is because you have already received it within. You are no longer trying to convince yourself or others. It is already done in your world. That inner knowing creates a field of energy that others can feel, even if they do not understand it. You begin to carry a quiet confidence that does not need applause. You become magnetic, not because of what you say, but because of the calm certainty you radiate. That certainty is forged in silence. It is in the stillness of your mind that the vision becomes real, and once it is real within, the outer must follow. The more you practice silence, the more you will notice that manifestation becomes effortless. You are no longer working to create results. You are receiving what you have already accepted as true in your imagination. Your actions flow from that place, not to make something happen, but because something has already happened within. Silence gives you space to notice these shifts, to stay connected to your inner world, to course correct without drama. It keeps you grounded in the now while staying faithful to the end. You become less reactive to outer noise because you have cultivated a deeper inner sound, the sound of belief. Many people sabotage their manifestations by oversharing. They talk too soon, look for reactions, seek agreement, and in doing so open the door to energies that contradict their vision. Silence teaches restraint, not out of fear, but out of power. You are not hiding your desire, you are honoring it. You understand that some things must grow in the dark before they are ready to be seen. Just like a seed beneath the soil, your manifestation is not inactive while hidden. It is developing roots. Those roots are built in silence. The stronger the roots, the more unshakable the outcome. And when the time is right, the results will speak for themselves. Silence also helps to regulate emotional states. Without the distraction of constant speaking or explaining, you become more aware of how you really feel. If there is fear, you meet it with awareness. If there is joy, you amplify it. You become the guardian of your vibration, tending to it with presence and intentionality. This emotional regulation is vital, because manifestation responds not just to what you think, but to how you feel consistently. Silence helps you stabilize those feelings. It helps you hold the mood of the wish fulfilled, without external interference. It trains you to become inwardly rich before the outer riches appear. It gives you room to experience the reality you have chosen in the privacy of your being before it takes form. Using silence as a tool does not mean never speaking about your desires. It means choosing when, where, and with whom you speak, based on alignment and inner prompting, not anxiety or habit. It means knowing that your creative power does not increase by being vocal, it increases by being rooted. In silence you reclaim that root. You return to the center of your power, where the imagination rules and the outer world obeys. You become the observer, the feeler, the knower, and you do it all without needing to be seen, because true creation happens not in noise but in quiet certainty. Acting from the end, not the emotion, is a fundamental principle in the art of manifestation, and it requires a complete shift in how one responds to the world and navigates their inner state. Most people act based on how they feel in the moment. If they feel discouraged, they act timidly. If they feel frustrated, they act impulsively. If they feel hopeful, they act enthusiastically. But these actions are unstable because they are rooted in emotion, which is constantly changing, easily influenced by outer events, and often driven by fear, doubt, or memory. When you act from the end, you step outside of this emotional loop and begin to operate from a place of fulfilled vision. You are no longer reacting to life's fluctuations. You are responding as the person who already possesses what they desire. This shift changes everything, because it places you in alignment with the version of yourself who lives in the outcome, not in the problem. To act from the end is to ask, if my desire were already fulfilled, how would I think, feel, speak, and move? And then live that answer. It does not mean pretending or faking. It means choosing to embody the inner atmosphere of the fulfilled state before it appears in the external world. You are not waiting to feel successful before you behave confidently. You behave confidently because in your imagination, success is already yours. You are not waiting for a relationship to feel loved. You feel loved now because in your inner world, the connection is already real. This inner alignment then begins to inform your actions in subtle yet powerful ways. You start to make decisions that match the version of you who already has the life you desire. You begin to carry yourself differently, speak with more clarity, and pursue opportunities that reflect your new identity. Acting from the end stabilizes your energy. Instead of being pulled by the chaos of the outer world, you become grounded in the inner world that you have chosen. Emotions no longer dictate your direction. Even if you feel tired, afraid, or uninspired, you remain faithful to the end you've claimed, and your actions are guided by that reality rather than your temporary feelings. This discipline transforms your state of being from reactive to creative. Emotions still arise, but they are no longer in charge. You do not deny them, but you do not serve them either. You learn to act independently of how you feel in the moment, and instead remain true to the emotional tone of the end result. This practice is not about suppressing emotion, but about prioritizing assumption. The person who acts from the end becomes emotionally intelligent by nature, because they understand that not every feeling is worthy of expression, and not every thought needs to be followed. When something unpleasant happens, they do not allow that moment to redefine their belief. They hold the vision, they return to the state. They act from the end, not the mood. This is how power is reclaimed, by choosing identity over emotion, direction over reaction. You do not ignore the storm, but you remember who you are in the middle of it. You act as if the storm is already behind you, and that shift in posture begins to move reality accordingly. The concept of acting from the end also invites a greater degree of intentionality in daily life. Every decision becomes a vote for the version of yourself you are becoming. When you consider how you spend your time, how you speak about your life, how you treat others and yourself, you begin to see whether those actions align with the end result or the current struggle. The more you practice this alignment, the more natural it becomes. Over time, acting from the end no longer feels like effort, it feels like home. You are no longer trying to convince yourself that your desire is possible. You are simply living as though it's already real, and your world begins to organize itself around that truth. This state also removes the pressure of results. You are not acting in order to force a specific outcome. You are acting because it is consistent with the person you already are in imagination. You are no longer doing something to get something. You are doing it because it reflects who you have decided to be. This is a subtle but transformative distinction. When you act to get, you are still in lack. When you act from the end, you are in possession. This is what brings ease into the manifestation process. You no longer chase your desires. You embody them and they are drawn to you by resonance. Another effect of acting from the end is increased clarity. You begin to filter your thoughts, habits, and choices through a new lens. Does this reflect the person who has already achieved the desired reality? If not, you let it go. If yes, you do it with confidence. This clarity simplifies your life. You no longer entertain options that pull you out of alignment, and you no longer tolerate situations that contradict your inner state. Your standards rise not out of pride, but out of alignment with your assumed identity. You no longer shrink to fit into your old self. You rise to match your imagined self, and the outer world responds. Acting from the end also cultivates trust in the unseen. You may not yet see physical evidence, but you continue to act as if it is inevitable. That consistent action begins to reprogram the subconscious mind, sending the message that the new reality is safe, familiar, and true. And once the subconscious accepts this as fact, the physical world has no choice but to mirror it. This is how the law of assumption works, not by wishful thinking, but by loyal embodiment. When you act from the end, you signal to the universe that you are ready to receive, because in your heart and mind you already have. In the silence of your assumption, detached from the noise of the world and free from the need for validation, you become the master of your reality. You are no longer reacting to life. You are creating it from within. Through emotional mastery, calm inner conviction, and unwavering alignment with the end, you step into the identity of the one who already possesses what they desire. You are no longer ruled by appearances or temporary emotions, but guided by the quiet authority of knowing. This is the essence of true manifestation, not forcing the world to bend to your will, but allowing it to reflect the state you faithfully inhabit. When you learn to act as though you don't care, not out of indifference, but out of inner certainty, you move beyond resistance, beyond doubt, and into the realm of effortless creation. The outer world becomes a mirror, and you, the silent architect, shape it moment by moment from the invisible power of your assumed truth.